Good morning, everybody. How are you today? What's happening, chat room? Hey, we're here. Okay. Johnny will be up with us in just a moment. And I am with you right now. All right. Good to see you guys. Look at this. It's when I'm home and I'm set. Reading material.
Johnny's here.
Johnny's here. Yeah, Johnny. I want to wish everybody a happy Memorial Day weekend. Good to see you guys. I recommend, if you can in any way, attending any of the Veterans Day memorial services that are often happening in major cities around you, if you get a chance to. Some don't have them. There are plenty of online charities that you can give to, that kind of thing. It's a good way to kind of do that social media boost. One of the other things you can do for Memorial Day weekend is pick a veteran who's injured or has lost a limb or suffered traumatic brain injury or that kind of thing, and donate to their GoFundMe or the like. I'll be posting some over the weekend if you want to keep track of those. So just a little thing, just some extra ways you can show your appreciation, as it were. Hi, everybody. What's happening? Why can't you do something else with your streams, not just talk? Because this is a radio show, Fortnite clips, and I do other stuff. There are other videos that you can see. Not just talk. I'm not just talking. The point of my words actually have a meaning. I think when somebody says you're just talking, it's because they can't comprehend the words, maybe? Is that what's up? Is that what's going on, maybe? No slam, but I'm trying to say. Hi, let's talk about fake videos. Some Facebook rep just said...
bloat and irregularity to Crohn's disease.
That sounds terrible.
Program, their bodies return to normal balance and function. So
I had to turn it back on because I forgot we have a live broadcast. So I'm just gonna have to pot you up and down.
But
you're gonna be.
That's fine. No problem. I just was concerned that I had bloat that I wasn't aware of. I just got to remember I can mute it on my side temporarily, and I'll just bring it up within 20 seconds of when we're coming in, because I'm very concerned about bloat. What?
Our power level service is done with...
There you go. Hi, Julie. How are you? Oh, you're in Iceland. That's impressive. I hear it's very green, and that Greenland is very icy. Carl and Julie, the two barrels of our defense against trolls, this is true. Thank you, Hal Vickery, for liking and sharing. Please punch the thumbs up right away if you can, just to remember right out of the gate. And, of course, share the link on your Facebook page or your Twitter feed or your LinkedIn. Remember the one where they tried to make it look like the reporter karate chopped the White House intern? Yes. First time tuning in. Friend of Caleb is a friend of mine. Nice. Welcome, Ben. How are you? Oh, yeah, I remember you joined in the other one. I'm going to see if I...
Exclusively for WCPT in
us. Here we go.
Standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. Johnny Million is live in studio in Chicago. I'm so excited. Do you have big Memorial Day weekend plans?
Huge.
Yeah?
Huge. I'm going to remember everything.
Oh, it's not Memorial Day. It's Memorial Day. It's okay. Here, I was giving some suggestions before we started
I heard some of them, but please repeat.
Yes, the YouTube stream and the chat room already heard me say this or whatever. But I advise everybody, if I recommend, if you get a chance, if you're in a major city or even a small one, and they have any veterans memorial services, to attend those things. But also, if you cannot, or you live too far from one, or you're just not aware of how to make that happen, one of the other things you could do is find a veterans GoFundMe and support it in the name of someone that passed or that may have either been in your family or someone else, or just in general. And there's also multiple charities that you could give to as kind of just a single sign. That's that one way to vote with your dollars. Just make it a point to give $5 to the GoFundMe of because there's plenty of soldiers out there dealing with permanent bodily injuries and traumatic brain injury and that kind of stuff. So it's just one of the ways that you can make Memorial Day count, and then you can go back to barbecue and beer, which seems to be how all of our, the way we regard our servicemen and women and the labor in this country is we've turned Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend into basically barbecue holidays.
Yep.
So we already have, I think there's already an International Barbecue Day. So I'm just saying it's taken care of. So, yeah.
Is it really?
There has to be. Haven't you ever seen those ridiculous, Mr. Speaker, I come to the floor today in recognition of something I would like entered into the record. Today is International Donut Hole Day. I would like it to, you know what I mean?
Is that how we got International Goth Day?
Yeah, of course. International Shrimp and Grits Day is one of the most important holidays down here in Louisiana. Yeah, I don't know who put the International Goth Day thing in, but I would have loved to seen them float onto the floor of the Congress, just levitating in a black dress, pale face, just going, "Gentlemen, I rise in support of International Goth Day." But enough about Swedish heavy metal. So it's obviously been a huge week in terms of the tit for tat that is going on between Donald Trump and Nancy Pelosi. That was the big news this week. The back and forth. She has definitely found a way to get under his skin successfully. I have been saying for this entire time, folks, and I'm for, the push for impeachment. I believe that he has done things that qualify for impeachment. I believe there should be a standard by which, whether or not the Senate chooses to remove him from office is immaterial, that eventually we will get there. However, I do believe that Nancy Pelosi has a strategy around this, and I have some evidence to back that up in terms of audio clips. As I was going through all the back and forth, which was fairly hilarious, I have to say. I don't know if you heard any of his Rose Garden nonsense.
You know what? I saw your tweet storm about it because he made you, his pettiness and childishness made you so angry. It was delightful.
It set me off. Yeah.
It did.
I mean, first of all, it was absurd. There's been the whole back and forth started, and I don't want to get to TMZ and what happened on Melrose Place about this, but the Democrats, and he had talked about this $1 trillion infrastructure bill, right? And his response when they first came over was, "Make it two. Why don't you just make it two?" And everybody went, Duh, what? Just make it two. Go ahead. Why, if you're gonna do one, why am I? Let's go big. Double it. What did the last guy do? Well, we weren't even thinking of trillions in terms of what the last guy did. Well, make it two this time, because whatever you said, I want double it. And so they went off and created a $2 trillion infrastructure bill and set up a meeting like, we're gonna come back and figure out how to pay for it. That seems like a plan. You want to do $2 trillion of this. We have $1 trillion of it where we think we can pay for it. We've got some ideas, but the other $1 trillion is on you, dude. So how in the hell do you think you're going to pay for that? We'll have a meeting. You tell us, because we're going to have to convince the Republicans in the caucus, because they couldn't care less if our bridges fall apart or if the roads are cracked or whatever, because it gives them a great talking point about government. See, what you do is, if you're a Republican, you run on how terrible government is, and then you get in office and prove it.
Yep.
That's right. You just underfund and destroy things, and you go, see, government can't do anything right. You know, it's like hiring a baby.
Here, why don't you meet my private interests who could do the same job worse for more money?
That's right. It's like, it's stunning to me that this is, you know, not more obvious to people sometimes. But either way, and there are 4 good Republicans out there serving in office someplace, and
there are Democrats that do the buddy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're not wrong to do it. And we'll talk about that from a polling standpoint. We'll talk about that from a diversity standpoint, because like I said before, interestingly enough, as weird as people find it that Biden is doing so well in what we would consider, you know, an age of diversity in the Republican Party, that the majority of Black and Hispanic voters on the Democratic side are supporting Biden far and away by 40% over anyone else. But we'll get to talking to some of that in a minute. But one of the things that really, I mean, there were a bunch of bits that, I mean, from I Don't Do Cover-Ups, which was a ton of fun.
You pounced on that so hard. Oh, you mean like when you paid?
Yeah, Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal. That was then. If he wasn't paying for the cover-up, he was just paying for the sex, and that's. Yep. I don't know that he recognizes that that's worse, in a lot of ways. So yeah, that was his. Let's see if I can get that one to play.
You people know that probably better than anybody. I don't do cover-ups. You people know that probably better than anybody.
Okay, if you'll notice,
I don't think so.
No. The irony that he's talking to the press about how he doesn't do cover-ups while he's making sure that Mueller doesn't testify in public. He's making Barr pressure Mueller to do that. That he's denying subpoenas. That he won't let any of the. You know, he's like. There was a fascinating moment, and we'll get it as I play some of the clips, where he essentially admitted that he was like, wait, after I got Barr in there, I thought this was all taken care of. Like, this was one of the most, like, odd aspects where he, you know, along with him admitting that Don Jr. had called him, when the whole point was, dude, don't mention that he called. The whole point was you were saying all 3 calls went to other people, and then he threw Don Jr. under the bus, and then said that his son called him before the meeting, which I believe he was saying it hadn't happened at all, but then if he had, it was just after. He didn't even know about the meeting until it was over. So he had incriminated.
The thing about the truth is that you never have to try to keep your story straight.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes it
it's so much easier.
Really simple.
There are inconvenient realities that you might have to pay the piper for, but then it's over.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch in this stuff, in this back and forth, and the reality is, and I'm sending this message out to all of the Dems and some of the progressives that are out there that were just, they could not wait to throw Nancy Pelosi under the bus when we regained the House. This was, remember, everybody that, you know, that was decrying, you know, Nancy Pelosi doesn't need to be in charge again and she's terrible and da-da-da, and who basically were helping to sell the line that was put forth by Trump and his ilk. You know, that all of the people who were decrying Nancy Pelosi are now boasting about how tough and smart she is.
Yep.
Online. It's embarrassing, I think, personally. So there, needless to say, there were a bunch of hilarious aspects to this, and Nancy Pelosi, one of the ways that she got under his skin this week, of course, was her little virility. He doesn't have she made this like phallic fist, like an obvious reference to the man's manhood, as it were. And when he just doesn't have, what it takes, essentially, knowing full well that this is how he would take it. And what was his response? He retweets and tweets edited Fox News videos of her talking slower and stammering with all the words cut out. Which, by the way, just look up Donald Trump sniffing videos and understand that beyond even the stammers that he does, that's amazing. That in and of itself is something that would just make you annoyed about speaking in public ever again, right? Yeah. So this is
their doctored video. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. They put out a video of her speaking where they slowed the tape down so that tape. Listen to me. They slowed the video down to like tape. Remember, what they did was they put their thumb on the
tape.
They put their thumb on the wax cylinder and
exactly. That's how you get the original flames effect.
I'll be seeing you in all the. So,
that's pretty good.
Thanks, not too bad. When we come back, I want to play the clip, the two most incriminating clips from Trump's little back and forth. And this is what happens when you bait him well, is he will step all over himself. He will incriminate himself if only just to appear strong.
Oh, yeah.
And he, well, I mean, there's tons of it. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. We're streaming at infotainmentwars.com. You can like and subscribe to the YouTube channel there. I really appreciate it if you do that. And if you're in the chat room now, don't forget to thumb up that like. That helps us. Or thumbs down it, because interaction is interaction, according to YouTube. Who cares? Take that, haters. We'll be back. We need the public to understand.
Chicago, start your Sunday mornings off with me, Brandon Johnson.
I'm gonna bring this down. I'm going to read some of the chat. So naturally, we need the public to understand how much Barr is spinning the Mueller report. It's not a redo. It's an attempt to unspin. I would agree with that. Yep. Yeah, the Trump bank stuff is going to be ugly. That's what he's pushing back against. Deutsche Bank wouldn't lend him money during the 26 campaign, but he got money from somewhere. He got it from a private bank in Florida, with a branch not too far from the rub and tug that the was it the Patriots owner, whatever that I don't know, football that he went to. Facebook refuses to take down the videos. They're saying people have the right to pick their own truth. Talk about perversion. Yeah, my issue with that is who put them up. If the source putting them up is somebody, then you can judge them by the fact that those are being put up, say Fox News' Facebook page or Fox News followers. That's how it works. Haters, there are no haters in here. If there are, I will dispose of. Julie and Carl are just knuckle-cracking supervillains in there. Yeah. Julie Keller, why do you ban people who have different opinion? Are you a moderator or a fascist against free? She doesn't do that, stupid. John, she's kidding. Simmer.
Are you a disabled entrepreneur looking for assistance with starting or growing?
And it's not about, and by the way, we don't block people for having a difference of opinion, especially if you state it well. That's actually helpful. You get blocked for certain language, or just being violent, or spamming, or idiotic behavior, or just being rude, being way off topic for far too long, that kind of stuff, which is, doesn't help the conversation, that kind of stuff. Tug was in Jupiter, Florida, not far from Tiger Woods' home, just saying. Yeah, but he actually wasn't hanging out there, no matter how far it was. I mean, nobody gets in trouble for just being in geographical proximity to crap that went down. Otherwise, everybody in in the neighborhood of a murder house would, or where somebody died, would watch their property values go down. I mean, guilty by association is one thing. Guilty by geography is pretty awful.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, mega worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Okay, so there were a bunch of moments in Trump's tantrum attack between him and Pelosi this week, and hers were pretty direct. The first one, I think, is when people because people have been asking her about impeachment nonstop. And I personally believe she has a plan or a strategy to get there. I think she is working towards that goal, but I also think she's trying
I
to.
think she's absolutely right when she says he wants to be impeached.
Oh yeah, he looks at.
She's trying to do it when he doesn't want it. I guess.
That's exactly right. And what you do is you don't go right to the impeachment. You go to the process that would bring about impeachment right away, which is furtherance of investigations. That's right.
Yeah.
If you bring out all the stuff that you would get through an impeachment trial, it embarrasses him without. Because once people realize that he's a faux billionaire who's never run off profit a single day in his life, and that if he'd have put all of his dad's money in a bank account with just savings, he would have made more money just sitting on it than any of the stuff that he did. And that ultimately he lives on about $12 million worth of loaned money a year. And at this point also has not built anything of significance in over 20 years. Everything he's a part of is a branding exercise and basically has been since 91. And that's...
Do you think you could survive on $12 million a year?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Maybe. If I cut back,
Yeah.
Sure.
What's the first thing you give up to?
The first thing I'd have to
Yeah.
bring my cable bill down a little. You know what I mean? I give up
that eats up a good
the
7-8
movie
million.
channels. Yeah, that's always what you go for right away. And then I'd have like one fewer Starbucks a week. The stuff that would keep it within 12 million.
Exactly.
Right. Because those things, man, that'll spike you into the 20 million easily. We're talking yen, right? Just to clarify,
We have to.
we have to be, right?
Have to be.
And by the way, if you were capable as a human being of borrowing $1 billion, period, sight unseen, based on next to nothing, you could sock away a section of that money that you, even if they ever came for it and you'd never made any payments, you could declare bankruptcy and that money would be safe, where you could live within that $12 million lifestyle pretty much forever.
Yeah.
Because that's an extraordinary amount of money. And that's effectively what he has been done. Yes, Michelle in the chat room says, I'm keeping up appearances. That's right. That's right. This is my big...
That's exactly... You know what? It's funny, but that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is that sitcom or whatever. So now... I've noticed one particular thing, and I wonder if anybody in the chat room has noticed. And by the way, I want to thank... It was both Billy Hutchins and Hal Vickery in the chat room for your super chats. Thank you so much. She has no problem saying the word impeachment. As a matter of fact, she spends a lot of time saying, look, impeachment is not what we're going after. Impeachment is not the most important thing. Impeachment. She says it a lot. Trump never says it. Trump calls it the I word. He does. Did you? I mean, I don't know if you actually heard him say that, but okay, this is Trump saying it.
All of a sudden, I hear last night they're going to have a meeting right before this meeting to talk about the I word. The I word. Can you imagine?
Yeah, we can all.
Who's he talking to?
He's talking to the reporters in the Rose Garden. So he calls this. Oh, we also stopped. And thank you, Michael B. For the chat. Thank you.
That's from the madness at the Rose Garden after he stormed out of the meeting.
Yeah, the second one.
I'm going to go tell mom and dad first.
Yeah, well, he had drawn the curtains and called the press. And when they came in for the meeting, there was already a plan that he was going to leave the meeting early and go out there, right? So, I mean, it was so obvious. And if you look at the Rose Garden video, all the curtains are drawn. Normally, what's behind him, there's a couple of them pulled right behind the desk, but the rest of the walls are, the rest of the glass is open. That's pretty standard. You can kind of go back and look through this, his speeches and other presidents' speeches in the Rose Garden. That, unless something else is going on, they've always got them open or whatever. All of them are pulled shut so that the Democrats couldn't see that he had already planned this thing. Essentially, he was going to scold them, and go and then he magically goes out to this. Oh, what luck! You're all on the lawn, and he's got his little graphic going, which was adorable. The ABC News graphic about the costs of the Mueller report and the results of the Mueller report, which I will post up online, but was fascinating. For a lot of different reasons. One is he just kind of didn't grasp what parts of it meant, and he only read the cost part, not the reward part. That's fairly fascinating. So anyways, this is Nancy Pelosi being able to say the word impeachment.
The White House is just crying out for impeachment. That's why he flipped yesterday.
So she's leading this thing like he wants us to impeach him. That's why he's doing this. So this, this is a running issue with her. Now, the TMZing of this whole thing, especially the way Fox News tells it, and the way Trump tells it when he dragged his staff out there and made them talk about what his temperament was like. Remember, he made Kellyanne Conway and some other members of his staff who had been standing in the hallway apparently say, "Was I calm when did I flip out?"
Yeah.
No. I mean, honestly, I came in there and in this tone of voice, I said, "Somebody said something mean about me." It was so like 15-year-old, like middle school. It was super middle school.
I was going to say 15 is generous.
I
had those conversations when I was a child.
Mm-hmm. So this is Nancy Pelosi describing this, and I want you to pay attention to a couple of details, but listen to this.
The president, again, stormed out. I think, first pound the table, walk out the door. What? Next time, have the TV cameras in there while I have my say. That didn't work for him either. And now this time, another temper tantrum.
So what she's saying is, and he was pushing back against the idea that she said I pounded on the table. I didn't pound on the table. She's saying, if you listen to what she said there, the first time they met, he pounded on the table, if you remember that story. He was pounding on the table and trying to be tough. The second time was the meeting with Chuck and Nancy where Chuck was baiting him, and he's like, "You want me to take the shutdown? I'll take the shutdown." Where Chuck baited him into, claiming the shutdown was his. Right. So that's the second time she's talking about. And then the third time he throws a temper tantrum and leaves. That's exactly it. She just, and thank you, say what? Say what? Say what? So this idea that she lied about what he did this time because she was telling basically, and she was explaining what his behavior is kind of escalated or descalated through, as it were. Where he first started, "I'm tough, I'll pound on the table." Second time, "I'll bring the cameras in for 10 seconds," and then he drags it out and embarrasses himself. That stuff was spectacular. And then the third time, he just throws a temper tantrum. "Look, you can't tell me. Did you watch out? I'm gonna And then he leaves and runs out and just whines. Yep. So there's a lot of issues with what he said in this, but this is the one that stood out to me. This was the one that was crazy. This is him talking about what he's expecting from William Barr.
And findings that strongly led a great attorney general to be able to rule no obstruction. Okay. Now I thought it was over.
I mean, this is when you speak the quiet part loud. That's amazing. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. WCPT820.com is the website. We're also on TuneIn, so you can ask Siri and Alexa to play us on there. You can go play the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, and I think it will work. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm afraid to speak too loud because I have one, and she'll start going, "I don't understand what's going on right now." So there you go. We'll be back. Is the audio?
I'm Welton Gaddy. On the next State of Belief Radio.
Is the audio out of sync, guys? Check. Is the audio out of sync, guys? Check. Oh yeah, it is. Look at that. I wonder why that is. I can't tell. That's on my side. How do I fix that? We're going to figure this out. Give me 1 second. Please talk that. It's like a bad dub. Well, the nice thing is when my mouth is in front of the mic, you can't really tell. It's weird. Okay, that's working there. Okay, let's try this. Check. That's better. There we go. I think that fixed it. Did that work? Why don't Democrats just subpoena Mueller himself to testify? That would give everyone clarity, right? Well, they're trying to avoid that. I mean, I think you go through stages. You give somebody the opportunity to go through. They would have to, they don't have to subpoena him. He's already in negotiations to talk. It's about whether he's going to talk in private or public. He hasn't refused to meet, so. There you go. Hey, look at that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I fixed it. There we go. What's that noise? He doesn't want to provide the R's with video for Fox. Yeah. Could Trump block Mueller testimony? He could temporarily as an employee through Barr, because Mueller seems to defer to the DOJ no matter what, as a matter of policy. So that's the issue. Excellent. Coming back.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit Optima Tax Relief.
This is Ron Calgill.
And this is Robbie Earhart.
And you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
That's a lot to say. Why doesn't he just say the Hal Sparks Show?
I mean that's much simpler, isn't it?
I know. We're Mighty House Radio Show. That's easy.
Because I'm a comedian and an actor, and it's very possible that I might at some point decide to do a sitcom and call it the Hal Sparks Show, so I can't burn the trademark.
Can we edit this down? Maybe edit their promo. Just have it.
Just
have it say
say it.
Hey, this is Ron Calgill, and then just have that be it. Not even mention the show.
That'd be a good idea. And while we're at it, can we have Dick Hay reverse some syllables? just to get it.
No,
okay.
No, I want Dick Hay to do another one, but I get to write the cue card.
All right, I love that idea. I'm afraid of it, but I like it. So
it'll be so wrong.
So if you'll notice, also Trump has gone after Pelosi this week. Claiming that she's mentally deficient and weak and old. You know, he's inferring that she's not the Nancy she used to be. I'm not the Nancy I used to be. You know, she's totally fading. Totally got nothing. She's getting dottery. And she's like a grandma or something. And aren't you a grandpa, sir? Well, yeah, but I don't see him, so who cares? So he puts out these doctored videos. He's kind of slamming her, and she is threading this needle so well because she keeps saying, well, here, listen to this one.
Again, I pray for the President of the United States. I wish that his family or his administration or his staff would have an intervention.
That's amazing.
Oh, such a dig. Such a dig.
She says it with she's so calm.
Yeah.
Just like,
that's the only way that works.
I really think the problem with Jeffrey is we're going to have to schedule some kind of intervention.
Look, I know you're upset, and Maybe I would be if I was in your mind state. If I was in your situation, I'd be
I just wanted it to come to this.
I'd hate my life too if I was you. But you don't have to. You can stop. Like that's.
I hate my life too.
It's. I mean, I would. I would be miserable if I was you too. Like it just, and you can tell it just drives him crazy. Okay, so then he has his. Yeah, this is his response. He's having this meeting about, I don't know, cowboy hats or something. It's hard to always tell. Like, whenever he's like, we're having a signing today. I got a bunch of cowboy hats behind me. Clearly, I'm not aiming this at the base, but wink.
Kellyanne, what was my temperament yesterday?
Oh my God.
Very calm, very calm, very calm. I'm like she hasn't been a serial liar on the news, and that's not her job, right?
Does he have does she have is he holding someone that she loves hostage? Oh, her.
Yeah, right. Well, no. Here's the thing. I think these folks know that there's no upside to generalized decent politics, and this is a sad part of our political state that is beyond party right now, is that there is no safe middle ground functioning life, as far as if you want to have a career, unless you're an actual politician. You could arguably live in a decent middle, try to listen, try to push for your principles, but also be open to other people's actual principles, not just their sales pitch, that kind of thing. That's possible. But if you're in the PR world, you're just vacillating between working for monsters, essentially. Unless you want to work pro bono for a charity of some sort, and she clearly does not. Then he asks another staff member.
Always a straight talker. You were in that room yesterday?
Yes, sir.
What was my attitude when I walked in? Did I ever scream?
No, you were very calm and you were very direct.
I love it. She's always like nobody knows who she is, so he sells her first.
Always a straight talker.
You're always a straight talker. Were you? You, yeah, right. So there were a couple.
What day is it?
So he has been trying really hard, but unfortunately, his ego will not allow him to even operate his own insult machine properly. You know what I mean? So I'll give you an example. So the USMCA, the actual draft of the agreement, the final draft of the agreement, has not actually, insofar as I know, and certainly not from what Trump is saying here, reached Nancy Pelosi or committee. She said, we're going to need 2 weeks to look it over when you give it to us, because a trade deal between three major countries will require a lot of math being done. The idea, by the way, on this show, we're not down on complication. If something is complex, it's largely complex for a reason. There's, it goes back to the ACA. Why was this? No one's even read this thing. It's 3,000 pages. I'm like, okay, first of all, they worked it up in committee. You all heard reports on every segment of it. It's 3,000 pages because it references a bunch of different stuff, but also it deals with healthcare for 330 million people with almost as many diseases and possible circumstances they could find themselves in. It's a complex situation. It requires complex guidance. It's the reason why our tax policy and why our judicial systems have all these bifurcations and trifurcations and small subgroups and Part C, Paragraph A descriptives of what it actually means to be a cow is defined as, that's why that happens, because there are so many situations where somebody decided, well, I'm calling anything with 4 legs and a body a cow for my tax purposes. And okay, you can't do that. Well, it doesn't say you can't. It's nothing in the law. All right, now it says it. Okay, now a cow is a bovine animal. What, all that stuff happens because somebody else tried to wiggle the system. And when you create something, and I mean, look at your iTunes agreement. Look at any software agreement you agree to.
Thank you.
so much nonsense in those things because without it, someone will wiggle their way through it and it'll cost the company money down the line. So they look at it. So 2 weeks to look at an international trade deal between 3 major countries that border each other is not a long time. But he apparently seems to think like, why would you even just look at it and sign it? That's what I do. They give me these things in these little brown folders. I sign them, I show them to the press, and then I go back to watching Fox and Friends. So here he is talking about the USMCA, and he's trying to slam Pelosi, but he can't.
They've told us they're supporting it regardless of leadership. I don't think Nancy Pelosi understands the deal. It's too complicated, but it's not a complicated deal. It's actually not a complicated deal.
So he walks himself into his own corner, trying to go, it's too complicated for her. I'm too smart. I came up with this thing, and I'm super smart. And actually, you don't even have to be smart to read it. It's, So this is a jail of his own making. And this goes right into him talking about the 3 phone calls. Remember, the 3 phone calls that were being looked at by Mueller and his team. This is his defense of Don Jr.'s 3 phone calls. Remember, there were the 3 phone calls.
So of the 3 calls that were so horrible that he had a meeting and he called me and then he had the meeting after. And he made 2 more calls.
Oh, man. You just said, like, the whole point was none of those. And he, like, weeks ago, he said he wasn't one of the calls at all. And now he's officially said, in front of the road, I was one of the phone calls that he called. For God's sake, man. And that means that's why Don Jr. is being asked to testify in front of the Senate.
Yep.
It's moronic. Okay. My personal, biggest pet peeve of all this back and forth has nothing to do with their own personal, high school or middle school level jammering back and forth between the 2 of them. It's his constant restatement of this nonsense about drug prices. Have you heard him lately with his whole claims about drug prices?
No.
Okay, so his claim right now is that drug prices are going down for the first time in 51 years, and it's directly because of him. This is, here it is.
All they talk about in the House is this. I'd like to talk about lowering drug prices, which I've done better than any president ever.
Yeah, so he keeps saying he has lowered...
presidents don't talk like that.
Right. Well, there were a bunch of those moments where he's picking and choosing numbers to help himself, but let's for the record...
Well, what other president has ever said anything like that? I've done more than any other president ever. They don't talk like that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure back in the John Adams days, they were like, why, there wouldn't be a stalk of wheat in this country if it wasn't for me. Who drove the Spanish pirates away? So,
sounds better that way, though.
It would actually. But for the record, okay, so I went, and this was bothering me because, he's claiming it's because of him, but he's passed no bills that would have any bearing on them whatsoever. And his executive orders wouldn't have any baseline effect on it either. You do, by the way, though, have states like Colorado, where the governor and the legislature there put a cap on the copay for insulin at $100, for example. That's directly linked to any element of drug prices going down. States doing stuff like that has had more of an impact on drug prices, and yet still they've gone up 0.3% this year. Now, the idea that he's using, somebody told him that they've gone up slower than projected, and therefore he thinks he's bringing it down. This is one of those, the Republicans, they love to budget on the idea that we're going to make so much more money that it will make up for any tax breaks we give, because ultimately, these companies will make more money, and though they'll be paying a smaller amount of tax, they'll be paying more taxes ultimately because they'll be making more profits and selling more stuff. And in certain industries that works. In a bunch of other industries, it will never cap over the subsidies that they've gotten, specifically oil. The United States and most of our Western allies and a big portion of I guess China and Japan, they have all basically intentionally using government money and tax money paid down the price of gas and by creating reserves and all kinds of other factors to guarantee that gas prices stay within a certain window for the consumer. Even though if you had to pay for it based on individual cost, what it actually costs you as a driver, it would be almost double. It's been that way for decades, since at least the mid 70s. And there was tons of subsidies before, but gas prices will never crest over that point. That's why, again, most oil companies are operating on a debt to the American taxpayer in this country. Because without our subsidy, they wouldn't exist. So whenever you hear somebody telling you we're picking winners and losers with solar and wind and all that kind of stuff, understand that taxpayers paid $2 off of every gallon of gasoline since 1970. And then as it continues to go up, we pay whatever you're paying at the pump, you're paying in taxes through one form or another to lower that, to cut that cost in half. So it's around, it would be around $8 if you were just paying by yourself. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Stay tuned for more of me and Johnny Million. I'm streaming on YouTube at infotainmentwars.com. You can go there, like and subscribe to the channel there. That really helps us. We're trying to hit that 10,000 mark. We've really started the push there. And, of course, patreon.com/HalSparks. Support independent media. Nobody else does. We're up against Bain Capital and all these other guys. We don't get Mercer money, so any little bit helps. We really appreciate it. We'll be back right after this. So
this is Damian Perdue, host of
Damian.
Faith Theory Radio.
So 250 watching. That's right. Thank you, Can't Stop Lying. Can't Stop Lying, you are officially now my PR rep. That's, and Carl is our technical advisor, and Julie is our fan representative. Being out of the country, I haven't watched much of him. Being Trump, I guess. Billy, I know, but MSNBC just showed it again. Billy Megas time. I don't hear Trump bragging about the low gas prices like he was just last winter. Maybe that's because the price per gallon has doubled. Exactly. That's precisely why. Nobody's talking about gas prices because everybody recognizes that there's, it's a supply and demand thing that they have little control over unless they're willing to part with some of our reserves. And they only do that in an emergency, and they never view it as an emergency. Hal's giving out promo. Yeah, I am. Everybody's getting a promotion, right? Hal, when you turn your head just right, it looks like you have a round angel halo. Oh, because of that. Where is it? Oh. Black Farmers of America is a racist organization, according to Chuck. Chuck Todd? I don't know which one. I'm your slacker that forgets to watch for months on end. Yes, thanks, Kip. But that's why it's even more meaningful when you do end up showing up. I'm not fooling anyone. This is true. Right. I learned a lot of the politics in America since I follow your broadcasting. It's D-Day tomorrow in Belgium, voting day, federal and European. We got our own Trump. Love your imitation. Yeah, well, we have, again, all of societies have to go through these growth periods. And I really don't begrudge humanity, vacillating through this and coming up with, the occasional Trump and that it's, as long as you, I'm just making sure we.
10 seconds.
Okay,
It's here.
back.
You're right back here.
As a country compared to European countries, America's like 15. So we have an excuse for being stupid.
This is Doris Davenport, host of The Doris Davenport Show. All local, all the time.
Okay.
I'm on every Saturday morning from 10 to 11, right before Hal Sparks. Now let's get back to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
She called you lovely before the show, Johnny Million. I'm just saying.
Aww.
Yeah, she did. And considering how adorable her dog is, I think she's got fairly decent standards of what that means. This next clip is a pet peeve of mine. It may not bother other people as much as it does me, but listen, Johnny Million, tell me what's wrong with what he says here.
And I will tell you, my lawyers say you don't have to do this. You can use presidential privilege. You don't have to let your lawyers and all of your staff testify. You can use presidential privilege, sir.
What's
He really doesn't know.
He really doesn't know. It's executive
like
privilege.
When he couldn't say origin.
Yes, right.
He kept saying the oranges.
You can use oranges privileges. You can use
the orange privilege.
I think that was a mini stroke kind of a moment. I think that was
He had so many with
that
a
was
microphone in front of him.
That was a dotage moment. But in this case, I just think he doesn't know. And the weird thing is that he lays it off on his lawyers. And if it's true, that means he hires people who either don't know the phrase themselves. They're not aware of what that it's executive privilege. Or if they say executive privilege, he goes, "No, I'm the president. I'm not like a CEO right now." I'm like, "Look, see what the seal says?" So they go, "Oh, it's the presidential privilege." It's like when his trade negotiator was arguing about how they were going to do like REOs or something like that, and he was going, "Those are these aren't legally binding," and his dude was like, actually, they are legal. They're legally binding. They have to be legally binding. Like you never saw that dude again. So.
That's enough truth in these parts.
That's right. Well, he doesn't understand. Well, here's some basic math for you.
I've said from the beginning, right from the beginning, that you probably can't go down two tracks. You can go down the investigation track, and you can go down the investment track, or the track of let's get things done for the American people. I love the American people.
Did you hear that during Watergate, Nixon signed into bill a minimum wage law? Like, he was still being a president.
Yeah.
He was being
he fought a veto. Ultimately, they worked on a bill. They sent it to his desk. He vetoed it and sent it right back. And so
they compromised.
Oh, so by the way, that wasn't the only math problem that he had. And this was, again, I know this is probably just me. It has to do with, along the lines of the USMCA is complicated, but it's not complicated. And there were 2 out of 3 calls and 2 out of 3 tracks. He's like the when they were using the holy hand grenade of Antioch in Monty Python, 3 you shall count to and not 4. You will not count to 2 unless you proceed immediately to 3. 5 is right out. And then they get ready to throw the grenade. He goes, 1, 2, 5, 3, sir, 3. Throws it. So, because he has a problem with that number. It seems along those lines. This is him talking about a guy named Fred Keller, who he went out and had a rally for, because this dude was 50-50, right? Okay.
We had an election for Fred Keller. It was a 50-50 shot, and he won in a landslide.
Okay. Fred Keller won that district. It is true. He was polling at 50-50. They had to do a rally to support him and get out the vote for him. That's a district Trump won by 36%.
Wow.
He had to do a rally for this guy to get him over the top. That's not something to brag about. Any former president would have touted the fact that Keller won, perhaps, but not that, like, we killed in this area. You were supposed to. You were behind it. So that's wait, hold on. This one's fun too.
They issued 50 orders authorizing use of pen registers Think of that, though.
Okay. A pen register, just so you know, is effectively a tap on a phone that tells you the numbers of the call of the phone numbers that were called from that number. It makes a big list of it. It registers all the phone numbers. It's not an effective wiretap, a specific wiretap. That's a different level of
surveillance.
Yeah, you would need a much higher heavier case to get that one, but a pen register going, hey, this guy, we know this guy's a drug dealer, and we know a bunch of people call him. Now, his mom calls him and his sister calls him. We're not worried about them, so we don't need to listen to every phone call he gets. But, Your Honor, a bunch of those people are people that we have on trial as dealers. We want to, see how often they, while they're on bail and whatnot, they call him. Mm-hmm. Because we have, we've gotten a warrant to search his places before. We want to get a look at whether or not this dude is calling a lot. And this is what initially, by the way, this is why all this noise about William Barr sharing information and whether he's going to look at the intel and, they're going to throw people in jail. This has all just Benghazi noise. And then what's going to happen when it comes to, Barr himself, like getting a look at this stuff? Because everybody who gets a look at the real evidence against Donald Trump is suddenly biased against him. Like, they have such a bias against me. They're all biased. They're all Trump haters. Why do they hate you? Well, I don't know. They voted Republican for a long time, and then they got to look at the evidence, and suddenly they're biased, right? So in the case of Barr, I think there's a very strong chance that he's going to look at this stuff and go, Mr. President, this isn't something you want to pursue. We'll just let this hang, and this would be a lot of money to go after this, and they'll probably push back, and he can complain that they're not getting information. But better to say in public that they're not giving us what we asked for, because they can't deny it anyways. But they, these pen registers, is a fairly common thing. Especially the FBI uses them, the DEA uses them. It's a fairly standard thing, and it's one of those mid steps that a judge will give you without allowing you to hear every private conversation that somebody gives. But if you're, and it's a really necessary part of law enforcement. If you're trying to, from stalkers and serial killers to drug lords to mafia dons and the like, those guys all, a pen register is one of the major steps. You go, all right, we had suspicions this dude was in contact with some of these people, but we had no idea until we got the pen register, and you got dozens of calls between. I mean, it's how they got Flynn essentially, and they kept getting them for Papadopoulos, for Carter Page, for and they re-upped them. So even in the case where they had multiple ones, a lot of times they were just re-upping the same person several times. So and his complaint about that and about subpoenas and search warrants, they were aimed at people who had it coming. He's never been served with a search warrant. But his companies have, and Michael Cohen has, and Mike Flynn has, and Manafort has, and Roger Stone has, and it's just going to get worse. We'll be back. We're going to take a break. It's time for the news. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Tune in on YouTube at infotainmentwars.com. Follow Johnny Million at JMillion on Twitter and at Hal Sparks. Use the hashtag HSRPM. We'll be back. So, hi, chat room.
Did you know you can listen to WCPT?
I did know that. I'm not drinking my own urine. I promise. If I did, it wouldn't have ice in it. I'm just saying. I'm a purist. Give me some credit. Oh, Hal Vickery, you're the official schlub of the of HSRPM. I think that's fantastic. We all need like battle badges for what you do. Oh man, yeah, we'll talk about that when we come back. Can't stop lying. The walk and chew gum argument, the 2 tracks, and you can only do 1 at a time, and 5 is right out. Yes. Orange was not just a word in English until about 1700. Well, yes, because back then it was illegal to have a word you couldn't rhyme. Terrible. 50 orders authorizing the pen orders. Okay. They were all 555 12 12, right? I use this number as my phone number in surveys. Yeah. 8675309. Trump got told Gates about upcoming WikiLeaks releases during the campaign. Exactly. I mean, that's what Gates is. The ongoing stuff with Gates relates to WikiLeaks and Assange. Watch for that to be, part of what's going on with, and I don't see them sentencing Gates until they have some sort of extradition or agreement about Assange. And we'll talk a little bit about the balance of being in. It's the smoking gun. We'll talk a little bit about the balance of why Assange and why now and these new things. It's Hell's Peapod. So no Tang then, Hal? Right. Excuse you? Running around with scissors. That I don't doubt for a second. If Hal was not drinking, I would think that was a 24-hour urine sample. Do you put ice in your urine samples? Wouldn't that skew the thing or whatever? He does entertainment in 5. Oh. Don't you... This isn't the talking part, is it? Oh, yeah. Would you... I mean... If there's something in me, streaming video games, I'd be glad to do it for a couple hours a day. If that would entertain you, are you not entertained? Let's see. I wonder if they'll test still suit prototypes on the space station. The spice must flow. Will you be talking about the espionage charge against Assange? Yes. Once made cookies with Tang. Oh, like Sour Patch. Yes. Joe's all right. We're not hating on Joe. Yeah, room temperature pee is so 90s, isn't it though?
So I jumped.
Sorry about that.
Oh, man in the boat overboard.
Oh, Julie, he's doing great. He lost his first tooth. They were hanging on for dear life, and then he finally lost one of the lower ones. And he's. I have a feeling it's like going to be a year of his teeth just ejecting themselves. And you would be correct, Tom. I am drinking a type of tea. Yeah, finally lost a tooth. Oh, we were so excited because his teeth are great, but they've been hanging on like crazy. Yeah.
I have to laugh. Because I've often asked myself, my foe, my enemy is an animal. And in order to conquer him, I have to think like an animal, and whenever possible, to look like one.
Rather drink stale lime water. Ooh, is that your options? Are we giving Cam money under the pillow for the truth? Yeah, well, his mom likes to keep them, I guess, for a clone army. So he doesn't put them under his pillow. He puts them in a little thing, and then Tooth Fairy leaves money under his pillow. So, yeah. So how much does the Tooth Fairy leave nowadays? $2 a tooth. Because tooth. Use it as an opportunity to, yeah. At this point, he's saved up. Like, it would have, if they'd have started falling out early, they'd be worth a quarter. But, you know, it's... Are we back?
Yeah.
Sorry. I was...
Can you hear me?
No, I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. I was miles away. I was talking to the chat room, and we were having such a great time that I totally lost track. That's what happens. No, my son lost a tooth, finally. You know, he's 31 now. And he turns 8 this week, and like his teeth were just holding on for dear life. And so everybody in the chat room knows the saga. So one of them finally turned loose. So his grown-up teeth are finally coming in. I'm super excited about that. So it's it's the little things like teeth that matter. I have a couple more of these pieces to play, and we're going to talk a little bit too about the Assange ruling, because I have probably a relatively unpopular opinion around that, but we'll get to that after the next break if people want to stick around. My favorite, I think, moment, and I think the one that stood out for a lot of people, and we mentioned it in the first hour, but we actually have the clip of it in this case, if I can get it to come up. That was this one.
I don't do cover-ups. You people know that probably better than anybody.
And I mentioned the fact that he obviously is engaged in tons of cover-ups, and he's actually doing it right now. But the fascinating part of his pushback against that was you people know that probably better than anybody. Okay, first of all, he's talking to the news people that he says lie about him nonstop. And there are a dozen situations in all these recent speeches that I think he had a strategy for years, which works, by the way. Whenever you're lying about somebody, or you're trying to deride them, maybe you're telling you're exaggerating a truth about them, or you're trying to engage the other person into your belief system, is that you assert that others support what you're saying, including the person you're talking to, whether they do or not. You know, it's sort of like a vague attempt at a Jedi mind trick. You know what I mean? These aren't the droids you're looking for. You don't need to see his identification. You know, that it functions. It works. You know, it only works on weak minds though, which covers most Fox viewers, I suppose. But. And thank you, Amos and Billy, for the Camden's Tooth Fund. That's very sweet. Camden gets $2 a tooth now because it took so long for his teeth to fall out. Like, so now he would have gotten quarters if they'd have just started dropping like flies when he was 6 or 5, but they hung in till he was 8. So now they're a commodity. They've gone up like frozen concentrated orange juice or anyway. Trump tries to do this Jedi mind trick, move along, where he says, you guys know this, everybody says this. And he said it about he mentioned when he sells his staff member, that whole.
Who is a straight talker? You were in that room yet?
He says, asserts that this is someone to take seriously, based on nothing, by the way. This is a standard, kind of push that he does every single time. Like, lots of people say, and he says this about the AG a lot. Probably the most respected, more people respect him than so many people respect him. And then there was a lot of people have been asking me to declassify, so I declassified. This is I think he says that.
Attorney General is one of the most respected people in this country, and he has been for a long period of time. He's going to look at a lot of documents. Some he might find interesting, maybe he'll find none interesting. But for over a year, people have asked me to declassify. So what I've done is I've declassified everything. He can look, and I hope he looks at the UK, and I hope he looks at Australia, and I hope he looks at Ukraine. I hope he looks at everything, because there was a hoax that was perpetrated.
All right, yeah. So he starts off with how respected the guy is, and that everybody else's, respects him. This is even beyond the people in the room. This is the structure of how Donald Trump operates his kind of standard sales pitch. He's been doing it forever. It's it's just a used car salesman technique. It's been around forever. Like this is, I mean, people love this car. I got a lot of people coming in and see this. I mean, this is the car. I got a guy coming later on today. Yeah, this is the car people want. Like of all the cars on this lot, everybody says if I could get one car and I didn't, if I needed a car, this would be the car I would buy, sir. This is, that's it. I'm not kidding. That is actually how you do it, and that's what he does. The problem is, when he gets either stressed or whether it's a factor of age, and I don't want to get into what he gets into with Pelosi as to whether he's mentally slipping or not or any of that nonsense. But he clearly, maybe he got a bad batch of Adderall, or I don't know if you saw that close-up of the Sudafed that he was, he had a drawer full of Sudafed at his office in the taco bowl shot. Yeah, if you ever look at the picture of him with the taco bowl that he put out on Cinco de Mayo, remember that embarrassing moment?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So behind him in that picture is a drawer that's open, and it's chock full of Sudafed. Poor man's meth, And so, I guess there are people who snort Sudafed, Yeah. So he's got a bunch of it. And anyways, I don't know what the cause of it is, but and it might be, I think, just pressure. Ultimately, that happens too. When somebody is up against the wall and they're, on the witness stand, or they're in a situation where they feel pressured by the police or whatever, a lot of times, whatever their go-to lie tick is, it will increase in frequency and kind of lose its grip on functionality and reality. It'll just kind of, you become the character that Michael Keaton created that John Lovitz yanked for SNL, which is, yeah, I read about it in the paper. Yeah, I know that. I read about it in the paper. No. I read about that in the paper. Yeah. That's
Where did Michael Keaton do that?
In his stand-up.
Oh, really?
Michael Keaton had a bit in his stand-up that is the professional liar or whatever from that John Lovitz did, which is based on lying like a gangster in an old 40s gangster movie,
the whole that's the ticket thing.
Yeah, that's right. Charlie, I don't know anybody about I don't know how he got murdered. We didn't say he got murdered. How did you know he got murdered? Well, I read about it in the paper. Yeah, I read about it in the paper. That's it. Yeah, I read about it in the paper. And so that was a Michael Keaton bit, for those who don't know. The genius of Michael Keaton. And by the way, watch Night Shift and Beetlejuice and just let Michael Keaton do whatever he wants for the rest of his life. He could Nicolas Cage his way through the rest of his career.
Absolutely.
And still we owe him a debt of gratitude for those points. So anyways, there you go. Yeah.
And you know what? Top it off with an aperitif, the Vulture in Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah. Terrific.
Holy moly.
Yeah, what a terrible villain, by the way, of the villains to grab, and they managed to actually make it work.
Absolutely, because he was actually empathetic.
Yeah, you got where he was coming from. His weird little, like...
I was on his side for the first third of the movie.
Well, that's the trick of making a good villain. You got to,
Right?
And again, I don't, as an actor, I'm not one of these people who believes you have to be sympathetic about the people that you're playing all the time, and this idea that you have to find some way to love the character that you're playing, because some people, newsflash, hate themselves. They know they're doing wrong. They don't care. Okay, so you know the dude who was pulling the subway brake lines in New York? Do you know that story?
No.
Okay, so there was a dude, they called him the subway bandit or whatever, but he was basically train surfing. He would get on trains, in between cars without getting in the actual vehicles, and he would sneak in and pull the brake line. And he had sabotaged, the train lines in New York on their metro dozens of times. Like the economic impact and the time wasted for people who got stuck on that thing is immeasurable, right? He did it again and again, and he simply said he liked to inconvenience people. That was it. That was his thing. He liked to inconvenience people. And on the low end, it would be one thing if he was like, I hate business people and they all take the subway and this was their it wasn't even that. And most of the people who take the subway, by the way, these aren't the people who afford a car to go uptown. You know what I mean? They got to get to a job. And in New York, man, everybody's scrambling. The idea of the rude New Yorker is not based on anything like, they're rude by nature. It's they don't have time for BS because they live in a postage stamp that costs $3,000 a month. You know what I mean? You don't have time for niceties. You would start elbowing your way through a crowd if your rent was that high and your job paid that little and you were, narrowly making it. But hey, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. But he got busted. And, clearly not a self-sympathetic person, just kind of aware that he was being a jerk, And it wasn't because he was like, I have a herd inside. He was just being a jerk. By the way, you know how they caught him? He would ride on the back of trains with his crank hanging out, so that he would, as he went by, the people that were standing there waiting for the next train would have to watch him with his And they had a picture of him from security cams doing that, so they caught him with his Wah, wah. That's So
I want to make the joke like Who Among Us, but come on.
Yeah, not on a train. No, not on a train. Not in a car. Not on in a house. Not in a bar. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. I think we might have some calls. 773. Okay, good. All right, 773-763-9278. Well, then I'll address the chat room stuff that we. I try, Brad. I try to say it, chat room, in ways other than the obvious, but yeah, that was. Wow. All right, we'll be back right after this. Yeah. So.
Mouthwatering foods are.
I turn the thing down because there's. Can you not send news my way now, Lady B, or does it work? Can you? I don't know what the. Because I brought the fader down. That's why I didn't hear Johnny. There you go. Because I'm not getting credit for these ads on YouTube, and I'll probably get hit with something. They'll probably play a piece of music, and then I'll get a copyright strike on it. That's what I'm worried about. Like they might have the rights to run a piece of music, but I don't. Ben Affleck is now Batman. We're doomed. Actually, he's not anymore, Michael. And they're saying Patterson from Twilight is in the running. You feel bad for the people of Japan because of the earthquake or because Trump is there right now? Trump's brain is definitely going through some bad changes. Slightly out of sync again. Check. Huh. Oh, yeah, look at that. See if it does that. Maybe there? Okay. That's a really weird thing. Back to working okay? Put the bunny back in the box. I didn't mind Affleck as Batman, actually. I just thought the movies he was in were terrible. Batman is now a vampire, surprised. Okay, thank you. As did I, Fester Frank. The Batman movie was why I didn't actually take an acting class that was down the block from me. I'll tell you that guy's story during the post show.
At TotalDentistry.org, 847-358-2477.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Johnny, is that one of yours?
It is.
That's right. What's that one called?
That one is called...
I'm sorry, I put you on the spot, didn't I? Just like, I mean, because the name's less important than the...
Oh, somebody else named my songs for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Beast of Bodin, yes.
Oh, that was Beast of Bodin? That goes into Beast of... I see, okay. Because we played the heavy part of Beast of Bodin at the beginning. I didn't realize that was part of it.
That's the middle synth ELO part.
I would go Queen Flash Gordon zone, because that's definitely a for both you and I, an influence.
Yes, that's definitely. Whenever I hear synthesizers in my head, they have to be the 80s sounding synth.
Yeah, and you know what? I went through that window in probably mid 90s where I hated the sound of them, and now I find them comforting again. It's probably why "I'll Wait" is one of my favorite. It is my favorite Van Halen song.
Wow.
Oddly enough,
it's a great song.
Yeah, it's and now that I'm playing with Nerd Halen, that's the one I had to like talk everybody into. But now that we're playing it, they're like, oh, actually, yeah. Do you know about Nerd Halen?
I was just Googling and saw some Nerd Halen things come up before you mentioned it. What is going on?
I'm in a Van Halen cover band with my buddy Caleb and with Victor and Jeff, and Caleb is a Eddie sound-alike dude. He can just nail Eddie Van Halen stuff, and he's always had this dream of doing this Nerd Halen thing. And he was coming to the jam at the Whiskey and all this stuff, and he was like, "Would you possibly be? I know this is a reach, but could you? I want to do this thing, and it's called Nerd Halen." And I was like, "Are we going to sound exactly like them, or are we doing wacky, goofy, carrot top versions of the songs?" He's like, "No, sound exactly like the record." And I'm like, "I'm in. Let's do it." So we had our launch.
Is it nerd?
Huh?
Because it's
we dress as nerds, and we all have character names. And it's the story. The backstory of the band is that these four nerds decided that the only way they're ever going to have sexual relations with a lady is if they're, mathematically they did the numbers, and the best way for them to do this is to form a Van Halen cover band, and it works. And so over the course of the show, we get less nerdy, I suppose, but we start out in complete nerd gear. And the first gig, we had people LARPing our clothes. They showed up, like we had dudes showing up in glasses and shirts and ties. It was hilarious. It was like it caught on immediately. I was so impressed. Anyway, so we just started doing that. We're gonna, play around with it a little bit when we do a Chicago show. The meet and greet kind of thing that we do for the HSRPM. I'm going to try and set up a show of Nerd Halen there as well. You can come in and open for us instrumental something. That'd be awesome. And then play with us. And then you and I will have a Queen cover band. And I don't know how we'll do it.
Put it all on the table.
Yeah, right. Why not? Just, like Buck Teeth and the Five Stashes or something like that. We'll figure out what we call it. It's a sort of a hidden.
There's a great all-female Queen cover band out this way called the Ready Freddies.
Oh, that's nice.
And they recently, at one of their shows, they all dressed the way Freddie dresses in the "I Want to Break Free" video, and it was awesome.
Wow.
They all had the mustaches and the mini skirts and the bob haircut. It was so cool looking.
I'm friends with the Iron Maidens. I don't know if you've ever seen them. All-girl Iron Maiden. Yeah, they're fantastic and just nail it. But anyway, so Nerd Halen is flying on all cylinders, and I have a special side project I'm not discussing yet. We're almost done with the music video for it. We tracked a song. You've heard it. I'm not saying anything else about it. The people on the Patreon will know about it because they're going to get a first look at the video when it's done editing next week. And then there's the Double Neck Download is a podcast that I'm doing. You can find that on iTunes. And then, of course, there's a new one coming out that I will tell more about in the coming weeks. I'm excited. I've been working on it. It's very production heavy. It's like doing a comedy record every week, so it's a lot, but it's coming. It's going to be very exciting. There we go. Now we can move back to the show. I feel like feel like Ben Shapiro selling sheets.
Yeah.
By the way, while all this nonsense back and forth has been happening, between Trump and the Democrats, and specifically Pelosi. A lot of, his assertion you can only do, one track at a time. You can only split the 2 tracks into 3 once. What? The big fight was, will there be a wall? Will Trump ultimately, be able to get funding for his wall? Where is he going to get it? Is it coming from the Defense Department? All that kind of stuff. Will a judge temporarily put a halt on that attempt by his part? A federal judge has temporarily blocked part of Trump's plan to build a wall along the southern border with money Congress never appropriated for that purpose. From the Northern District of California, U.S. District Judge said that those challenging Trump's actions had a good chance of prevailing on their claims that the administration is acting illegally in shifting money from other programs to pay for the wall. So that happened. And then immediately following that, there was a disaster relief bill, $19.1 billion for Panama, for Florida, for Texas, and for Puerto Rico. And it was all set to go through, and one Texas House Republican blocked it.
Yep.
They tried to get it through regular order. They did a special session on Friday, and basically because everybody had taken off, and they went to a procedural vote, which required the consent of every House member, which they had all given except one, even though all of the Republicans, a vast majority of them had signed off on the bill. It was going to pass easily.
They thought it would just be unanimous. Boom.
Yep. They went home, and Chip Roy threw a monkey wrench in that. So they're not even going to be able to vote on that for another 2 weeks. So everybody who's dealing with the disaster there, will have to add those 2 weeks to the delay that naturally comes from just creating these funding and getting it out properly and all that kind of stuff. So the president is in Japan right now. I know this because his Twitter feed said, the White House's Twitter feed said, President Trump and Melania are in Japan with an exclamation point. So that's where they were headed. So it shouldn't be surprising. Wouldn't you write just like, President Trump is honored to be meeting today in Japan with blah, 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 he's meeting. Yeah, but it was just like, he's there. Cool. And then in terms of the Democrats and the polling, Biden still has a significant lead, 18 and 19 points in the Hill, Harris, and the Monmouth polls right now. Florida Atlantic University put him at plus 27. Quinnipiac has him at plus 19. Fox News has him at plus 18. The interesting thing is who's in second place. Most of the time it's Sanders, but he is somewhere between 12 and 15 on every poll. That he's steady at that point. The other candidates, curiously enough, vacillate a little bit more. And Warren, interestingly enough, tracks up and down almost parallel with him. In some cases, it's Sanders 12, Warren 12. In other cases, it's Sanders 14, Warren 8, and where it was previously Sanders 15, Warren 10. So there's, this idea that, she is in many ways only hamstrung as far as her polling numbers, not by people who would go for Biden, but by people who would go for Sanders. They seem, if Sanders was, it is clear that if Sanders or Warren were not in the race, their voters would go to that other person. Throughout the next in line are Harris and Buttigieg. Both of them, I think, are in many ways jockeying to be the vice presidential choice. Yeah. Sanders and Warren may be too close to the actual contender to find themselves in a position where they might become vice president. I don't see that happening. Harris, Buttigieg, Booker, I think they have a strong chance. There's also other outside members, but of the current field, that's those are the ones that really have a shot of if not, making it to being the actual nominee for the presidency, becoming the second tier candidate. Everybody else is going to ultimately, possibly with the exception of Sanders to some degree, become a surrogate for whomever runs after the fact. And there, I think there's a lot of value in this field insofar as ideas, especially, obviously Warren is really pushing the idea of nuts and bolts planning, which on the one hand really shows her to be far and ahead of all the other candidates in terms of, having ideas and how to actually implement them. Even though a good portion of what she's presenting requires a Democratic Senate to happen, having those ideas, having those plans, so that they can be there early on, so that people can check them out, run the numbers on them, that the GAO could get a good look at them and say something. That's impressive. So we're over the break. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. I just wandered right into it. It was almost like I was talking to the chat room about my kids' teeth. We'll be back right after this. We got to pay the bills.
Art of the City. We let you know what's happening in the theater, music, and visual arts, and what you can do to get involved and support the arts in the Chicago metro area.
No senators for the nomination, please. Yeah, that's right, Sixes. That's the problem that I think Sanders, Warren, and Harris run, and maybe Klobuchar run into, and well, maybe Booker. Yeah. Because here's the thing. Harris, Booker, and Klobuchar are almost guaranteed that their seat would be filled by a Democrat, both appointed by the governor and also replaced by a Democrat by the voters. Sanders and Warren, it's a dice roll. That's the tough part of both of them, is that whatever issues you might have with Warren or Sanders, whether or not you view them as presidential or what have you, both of them are holding on to a thin line insofar as holding that. What's happening, Ike? Ike's on the phone. Okay, I see you. Cool. Daddy, I lost a tooth. Yeah. It's more like a tooth or teeth. At least he doesn't need braces yet. Well, hopefully he won't. I didn't. If we have a male candidate for president, the VP will have to be a woman, yes. I don't think she has to be. I mean, in the case of, say, Buttigieg, for example, if you're talking about putting a pin in, minority support or whatnot, that also is a solution. That also is a first. That's also a big step forward. And I agree, Julie. I like Harris a lot. I think Biden and Harris are a very strong ticket still. Do you know historically what are odds, good, bad, middling, of losing presidential candidates becoming VPs? The over-under, I mean, not particularly, but there's obviously, I mean, Truman is a great example of, of what standard we used to hold the VP at. And then it was in some ways scuttled by the Dan Quayle years.
Now back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Welcome back. So,
we do have one call.
Yeah, I know. I think I know who it is, too. It's Ike, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. How'd you know it's Ike?
Because he's in the chat room, too, on YouTube.
Hey.
So I know I got a warning. But it's good that we can get him early in this segment. So
let's get him right away.
Yeah. What's happening, Ike?
Hey, old man.
How are you?
Hi, what are you doing? Drinking Kickapoo juice? You in Kentucky again? Drinking out of a mason jar?
I always drink out of a mason jar. It's one of my subtle winks. Just to let people know I'm 32nd degree. So go ahead.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'm kind of burned out. I don't know how everybody else is feeling about it, but you know, I've always looked at our system and compared it to other systems and governments around the world, you know, and, you know, I can see where it's better in some respects, but I've always looked for the, you know, where it's lacking in other respects.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them that I've always felt strongly about is we have a problem in this country that we have, you know, it's one thing to put these people into office. Well, we've got a real problem with disciplining them and taking them out of office when they misbehave or when they do something illegal.
Right.
You know, and that lends to, I'd like to see a little bit more blending of the parliamentary system to an extent when it comes to removing people from public office.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because there's a lot of them, and it's not just the one that has to be sitting on top of this pyramid scheme, but, you know, there's a lot of them that they seem to think once they get into office, that power goes to their head, and they turn it, you know, they turn out to be Snyder from one day at a time, you know what I mean? Just because they got a whole bunch of keys on their key ring, they get power hungry, and all of a sudden they turn into little Hitlers.
Right.
I've been listening to a lot of Chris Hedges
Mm-hmm.
and Richard Wolff.
Okay.
And, you know, and yeah, you know, I know who they are. You know, I think a lot of people do, and their viewpoints on things. And it goes to the heart of the idea of the economic system being, you know, we're basically living in a vulture capitalist system is what it is.
Right.
You know, thoroughly run by oligarchs and whatever they want.
Which, by the way, there's two Richard Wolffs. Just so you don't mean the Brit American journalist. You mean the socialist.
Right.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. I think Chris is a better example of an actual blended concept or whatever. I'm not a fan of Richard Wolff, and I find his arguments about stuff lacking. One of the ways that guys like him can get a punch through is the same way Alex Jones does, which is point out the fact that people in power take advantage of that power with great regularity without laying the responsibility at the feet of the people who put them there, or like you're saying, the activity of the people who should remove them once they overstep. As opposed to, it's not the system's fault any more than, if you run over somebody with your car, unless the brakes are faulty, it's your fault. You know what I mean? In the same circumstance with these guys, like, a capitalist system and a democracy that has a support structure underneath it, whether people label that as democratic socialism or not. And I don't think it actually, the dictionary definitions of them don't fit, but I think vernacular wise, people are affectionately calling it that, are not the same thing that Wolff is talking about in general. But I hear what you're saying. I was just trying to clarify who we're discussing. Yeah.
The two of them aren't exactly on the same track.
No.
Between the two of them,
yep.
I lean more towards Chris Hedges'
yep.
View of things. But also, too, that's exactly right. You can't have a game unless you have rules of the game.
Right.
You can't have a football game unless you got marks on, lines on the ground.
Right. Which is, by the way, the essence beyond whether or not you look at it as something as socialist or capitalist. Which, by the way, socialism is and capitalism are monetary systems as opposed to political systems. That's the issue that I think a lot of people, don't differentiate. They just think they're driven by the politics of it, but they're not necessarily. They can be devoid of politics. They can run roughshod over what the actual people want, and that's that's I think what people don't kind of understand, that your economic policy can be separate from how you run your country in terms of how the citizenry is the needs of the citizenry is balanced against what taxes come in and what those taxes should be for and what threats you might be up against. They used to be entirely warlike. When somebody, and this is something Wolff likes to talk about a lot, and I'm curious what you think about this, because Wolff brings up a lot of times that the kings and lords used to take advantages of serfs and in the fiefdoms of England. And that people just owned the land, and they forced people to work these sections of land. And if they didn't, they would get, expelled or killed. And it was effectively a form of wage slavery that the kings and lords had over people. And it's an example he uses a lot. But in reality, what the people, those farmers, got in exchange largely was security and trade routes that were protected by the forces of the kingdom, right? So yes, you know, if you wanted to go off into the woods and grow your own tomatoes and live off the land away from all humanity, you could. But if you were moving into the city, somebody had to have some, you know, eventually you're going to need police. Eventually you're going to need some way to get the dirty water away from the clean water. Eventually you're going to need to keep the French ships from sinking the English ships that have your tomatoes on them. And that's what the lords were effectively paying for. And then eventually that's what extrapolated into our tax system now. And the constant gardening of decent government is to recognize that a lot of people take advantage of that system. Whenever there's a gap in it, somebody's going to go, hey, I can make a bit of money off this. This is, they're looking left. If I walk right, I can just pick up one of these tomatoes and walk away with it. And so somebody has to go, all right, we're going to need a camera because I can't look all the time. That's how it naturally grows, right? But this idea that it's somehow, a Bilderberg level, Alex Jones conspiracy that a lot of this complication and stuff happens is a little bit overblown in that regard. But anyways, that's my bone to pick with the Richard Wolff side of it. But I do think Chris Hedges is a little more balanced about it. But go ahead.
Well, but I mean, at the same time, if you look at the way the lobbyists have bought Congress and buy politicians on a regular basis and corrupt them, this goes from the top to the bottom. It's hard to say that absolute money doesn't corrupt absolutely because it does.
Sure.
And they practically own everything as it stands now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also bigger than that because it's on a global level, and you're seeing the rise of the right-wing authoritarian type government systems trying to come forward where everybody in this world knows, like what happened in Austria,
right?
Just in their last election
Sure.
cycle. You've got to watch out because the next thing you know, then we've got a world war going. But what I was going to say was, it seems to me and I'll roll out with this. It seems to me that we've hit the sweet spot. Whoever it is that started thinking, whoever it was that was taking aim at us, whether it's, Khrushchev and his "we'll take you over without firing a shot,"
right,
or any other power that has looked to destroy our way of life and basically twist and mangle our system. I think they've got us in the sweet spot right now. I think they've found the crack in our armor. And the reason I say that is this shouldn't be this hard to impeach a president. It really should not be. And there should be no argument, particularly of this president, that impeachment is not only called for, but it should have been done a year ago, if not longer. There's so many examples of obstruction of justice, abuse of power, outright lies. I mean, the things this man has done and continues to do, right along with this latest thing, trying to give arms or sell arms to the Saudis. I mean, he's a danger, and he's a danger to the point that I think the longer that we hold off, I never believed that I'd see the end of this civilization the way that we've got it right now, or the way that we've had it all my life. But if there's anybody that can do it to us, it's going to be this guy and whoever it is that's backing him.
Well, I hear you in that concern. I definitely do. My issue a lot of times with the kind of the natural catastrophizing that goes on when you have somebody this kind of mentally adrift in charge of the levers of power is the luck of greed on occasion, because there are a lot of people who like the system the way it is. And as much as they fight, the liberal side from trying to regulate or confine them as far as illegality and that kind of stuff, they also will fight their own side if they're going to upset the apple cart, which is why you have, the Mueller report coming to the conclusion that Trump attempted to obstruct justice repeatedly. He was unable to on most of the counts simply because people ignored him. That the people there were so interested in their own legacy that they stopped it. Now, that is the tough part with William Barr, because for whatever reason, William Barr seems to be all in on supporting Trump and allowing him to get away with this stuff. Now, he has not run up against the information in his mind because, remember, William Barr believed that the people involved in Iran-Contra should be pardoned. He believed they deserved pardons. And in the case of, Iran-Contra, these are people who arranged drug sales for cash that went to death squads under the radar, totally illegal. And so it's not surprising that he doesn't give a crap about Trump not paying taxes for decades or lying about his wealth or engaging in coordination with the Russians in a way that affected mostly public opinion and acted as a giant psyop. Like if he thinks people that literally exchanged guns, money, and drugs that resulted in innocent civilians being shot down in mass, if he thinks that deserves a pass, then it should be no surprise that he thinks everything Trump has done deserves a pass. And that seems to be what his legacy is more frightening, because it seems to be that he believes in the supreme executive concept. And in that way, he is the Dick Cheney in this circumstance. That Trump has moved into the George W. Bush zone. And Cheney was unable to do a lot of what he set out to do, and he definitely chipped away at it. And this is another brick in the wall. They are definitely trying to build on top of what happened, that the lie was not prosecuted around Iran, around the Iraq War, and lying about yellow cake and all that kind of stuff. So they're thinking, okay, well, we can keep pushing this. And you're absolutely right that at some point there's going to have to be a pushback. I personally don't believe it will ever be a president in modern era. I think there's a chance Trump might see some fines or some house arrest or at the most after he leaves office by the New York AG. I think that's entirely possible, because I don't think he will stop engaging in the kind of crap that he's involved in. But I think the turning point will be when the William Barrs of the world go to jail. And we're almost there with Flynn. Flynn was the National Security Advisor of the United States of America, and that guy is going to jail. He was short-lived, and he was only there for days, but him doing time will be a reality check for a bunch of these folks. And he'll do less time than he should, but it's significant. Now, he'll go to a Fox job as soon as he gets out. So that's the tough part. Let's say Trump did 2 years after he got out. If he still had his brain together, Fox would hand him a job. We got to take a break. And Ike, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. We'll be back right after this. I think we will. Oh no, we jumped off air. Is that what happened? Damn it. I was all set up and ready to go with Ike, and then I got bounced off the air. That's so sad. Sorry, Ike. I know you can hear the YouTube, and I don't know if Chicago can. I'm reconnecting right now. Hopefully we're in a break. We'll be back. I gotta solve this little stupid problem. Burp-a-derp-a-derp-a-derp-derp. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Usually when I run into this problem, it's on their side. So, yeah. Dun, 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 dun. It says reconnecting. Rats! Dag nabbit. All right. I'm going to try to sign on to this. I'm going to change. That's it. So that's not going anywhere. I don't know why it would. Dagnabbit. And and most of these times when we have this issue, I always find, like, I pop back in and then I go, oh, it wasn't me. And I always think it was me. So hopefully in Chicago they can hear me, and I'll just chat through this whole thing when we come back from break. We'll see. We only got a few minutes left in the show, but the tie line, the server isn't authenticating, so it's not on my side, I don't think, because it's not like I've lost internet. Oh. Reconnecting. One of these days, we will have another way to do this. It drives me mad, I tell you. Why do you do this to me? Okay, let's see if I can do something real quick. Here we go. We'll go to this guy. Settings. Back. Bluetooth. Pair device. Yes. Okay, hold on one second. We're going to fix something. Pair, you sucker. Come on, sucker. I don't know why it's still authenticating. Man, this drives me nuts. Why would you do this to me? It's so annoying. I don't get it. It drives me crazy. Oh, sorry. There we go. Trying to. Now discoverable. Okay, so discover. Trying to fix this. So I'm on YouTube. Oh, good. Oh, nice to know. I'm sorry, Johnny Mill, you can't hear me right now, but we will continue with the show as we do. We only got a few minutes left. Anyways, I will continue to try and fix this as we're going along. But I do want to remind everybody, and we've talked a bit about this in the chat room. There's a lot. Everybody's in the chat room is saying it's Russian sabotage. I would, at this point, I would believe it. It's not like they couldn't assign it. There's so few of us out here. It wouldn't be hard to assign somebody to me. But I'm going to try to avoid as best I can. I'm going to try to avoid the paranoia. Few of us out here. Hey, we're back. It wouldn't be hard to assign somebody to me. But hold on, Chicago. Use the tie line. I'm back online. I can actually hear myself. Here we go. The paranoia. Few of us out here. Hey, we're back. It wouldn't be hard. There's a loop. Somebody to me. Hold on, Chicago. I love the tie line. I'm back online. I can actually hear myself. Look at that. Paranoia. Johnny Million, I can hear you. There's a loop. But it's a terrific loop. I feel like I love the loop. Ladies and gentlemen, I can actually hear myself. Look at that. Now stepping up to the plate. Johnny Million, I can hear you. There's a loop. But it's a terrific loop. I feel like I love the loop. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, are you there?
There you are. Yeah. Hi, Johnny Million. Sorry. That was crazy.
As soon as you came back, Lady B, of course, was out trying to fix things.
Well, yeah, she probably went and restarted the tie line on us, and that was probably the thing that gave it away. So there you go. So thank you for running around and fixing stuff. It's not your fault, Lady B.
Nashville Carl?
Oh, yeah. Nashville Carl's on the line. Let's grab it.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
We're hitting the Nashville Carl button.
Hey, Carl.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good.
You know, the Russians knew I was coming in.
Yeah.
They did. They tried to shut it down.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, as far as capitalism, it works only if greedy people aren't greedy people. That's kind of like, you know, when people say, well, that's all you have to do is apologize. We're a forgiving nation. Everything will be okay. And, you know, that's a damn lie. Every time I hear that, I want to put on a pair of Timberlands and kick whoever said it in the shins because, you know, we're petty and vindictive and we hold things over people's heads.
Right.
So, you know, that's pretty much how I feel about capitalism. It just depends on the people who make a lot
Dude, I think you have to. It requires a level of management like a garden does. A garden will get overrun with weeds. A garden will provide you with food. A garden is a great way to guarantee yourself food and all that kind of stuff. But if you let it get overrun with weeds or gophers or whatever, it will become useless to you. And that's exactly why. That's why when they go, we're trying to get rid of regulations, I'm like, oh, you're just releasing mice into the wheat fields with fleas with bubonic plague. That's what you're saying to me. But go ahead. Yeah.
Exactly, because that's the exact same thing I hear when I hear they want to deregulate. That's code for we want to have cigarette commercials again.
Yeah,
that's the type of thing that I hear.
Totally.
And as far as the 2020 election, I'm excited about the field that the Democrats are putting together, and I hope like hell that the Democrats have learned their lesson to never let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and we will never ever let an independent give us something like Donald Trump ever again. I don't care what anybody feels. I personally blame the Russians first and Bernie Sanders second.
Mm-hmm.
Should have got his ass out after South Carolina. He drug it along, and we ended up with the wounded candidate in the general and let an abomination of just a flat-out racist in the White House. We can never allow that to happen again. Never.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think there's a huge, element of taking that very seriously. You can't just assume that that an outsider who's using your system that you spent a lot. Again, this is what happens when we start to hate the words establishment, because you have established things in your life. You have established a route to your job and back. There's a difference between being stuck in a rut and just establishing a functioning system. And there's a frustration in the once you get the broad strokes of a society, especially where you're getting them within certain guidelines, once you get into the minutia, acting and fighting as if the minutia or the mild differences are the same as the giant differences, that you put them on the same level as suffrage or ending slavery or those kind of things, and so you allow dogged infighting to chew you up. All that does is leave that opportunity for somebody that's in politics, like the kind of person, like the capitalist we were talking about, that effectively just is the rat eating the grain. It allows them access to you. So I appreciate the call, Carl, as always. It's fantastic. And it's nice to have Ike and Carl in there. I keep peeking over. Are you there, Johnny Million? Like at these points I get nervous. I'm like, you just almost have to make little noises regularly so that functional, useful ones. We're going to end the show with, this is Nancy Pelosi asking a question that I think is on all of our minds in a lot of ways. And of course, don't forget patreon.com/HalSparks. You can follow J Million on Twitter. That's Johnny Millions. And I'm at Hal Sparks on Twitter. Here's a little snippet, Wilson.
Sometimes when we're talking to him, he agrees. And then I said one time, who's in charge here? Because you agree, and then all of a sudden something changes. What goes on there? Who's in charge? That's
a good question that we're about to find out over the next couple of weeks. Thank you guys for listening. Stick around for the post show. If you're on the YouTube channel, don't forget to smash that like for me. Like and subscribe to the channel. It always helps out. Thank you, Johnny Million. You're wonderful. Thank you, Lady B. We only had one little piece that was off, and then we managed to pull it, and we righted the ship. I appreciate you guys more than you ever can possibly know. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. We'll see you next weekend.
I'm just looking for some
Hi, chat room. Give me 1 second, and I'm going to...
And this is what's going to be in the background, trade, because this is something that's been on the president's mind. Not only as we've seen these talks fall apart with China over a potential trade deal there, but now with
signing
Japan,
off Chicago.
There is
There you go. Dink. Ta-da. Whew. we managed to get through. What was Nance's question? I didn't want to miss it. So here, I'm going to pop out this chat and blow it up. I have such a big screen for editing that one of the issues is that I end up getting the type ends up so small on my screen that I can't see anything. There you go. Yeah. And thank you guys for the super chats today. I greatly appreciate it. Johnny does make great noises. This is true. Oh, earbuds. That's true. But I need the earbuds if I'm going to hear my sound effects, so I know that they're actually working. Although I don't know how many I need currently. We'll see. Hold on. I almost tried to use my phone as a mouse. How many have done that? How many have actually reached over where your phone was next to your mouse on your computer and you were trying to move your computer with your phone? Oh, yeah. It's I do have the halo. It's true. Oh. Needs to be closer, really. Or my head has to be further back. Eat of this bread. It is my... That's cannibalism. Like for my phone when it's in my hand. That happens. I mean, I've been nervous about losing my phone when it's in my hand. Oh, there's the delay again. Apparently, I can solve the delay thing just by switching back and forth. Yeah. My phone is above the keyboard while my mouse is on the same level, but to the right. Yeah, most of the time that's true. But if I set it down earlier when I was, or your mouse bites you. Computer. Oh, how quaint. Yeah. Keep having to call my phone with a landline. That's fascinating, Jamie. That's old school. That's like time travel. I'm impressed. So, let's see. 246 concurrent viewers. Welcome to you all. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And listening to the radio show. I know some of you don't know what you're tuning in for. You don't know it's a political talk radio. You don't know it's progressive or liberal politics. And you come by anyways and just check it out. And I appreciate that. You don't have to agree with me to come here. And you guys know that while I'll be a bit linguistically spicy at times, I don't take for granted that people, have different opinions that are valid from mine. And that's the great thing about a democracy, is hashing these things out. You will know I am not a fan of, cancel culture or no platforming. I don't think that's valuable. I'm a free speech purist, even in its most ugly. And so I welcome you, and thanks for being here. And then those of you that hang around afterwards for the post show, you're a gift, and I appreciate you. And here, I'm going to put this up for a second. When I cut out this extra piece, if I play clips or anything like that, it's for either satire or comment. So there you go. Yeah. There we go. We'll put this guy up. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show. Thank you very much. Share it. That helps us immensely because of the activity of you guys. And I think almost entirely because of the wonderful work that Carl and Julie do clearing out the monsters. And not everybody who disagrees is a problem, believe me. There's a difference between different, difficult, and deplorable, as it were. And I think that's important. I think because of them and because of Can't Stop Lying constantly reminding me to actually do the hard work of mentioning the like button and all that kind of stuff. I greatly appreciate you guys, doing that. We've had a spike in viewership over the last 2 months, especially since we've really doubled down on this. Yeah, we didn't have any real trolls, and even people who disagree. Like I said, I'm not automatically against them. I'm just saying, if you can behave within the context of what you're talking about, right? Repetitive stuff irks me more than trolls. Yeah, well, the teens try to do that, and thank you, Can't Stop Lying. Genuinely, I mean, I have been terrible at this stuff, and I'm getting better at it, and I'm really making an effort to do it. And when I do it, one of the things that keeps me motivated to do it, and this is completely frank, is as an artist who in the past has had a hard time selling himself as an artist, not as a personality. Like, I have no problem big upping myself on a personality level, as many of you know. My ego is quite sound in that arena. But when it comes to, the finances of art, it's always a tricky area for people to put a value on what they do and all that stuff. So I've, that's been a part of Project 50, quite frankly, that I've kind of done under the radar. And you guys have probably noticed an uptick, and I hope it's not annoying the sales aspects of stuff like that. But we don't have, I don't have advertisers on the show. I may eventually. That's the goal, I have, technically, I have 4 commercial spots on WCPT that I could sell or put out that I've never used for commercials or sold them to an advertiser or any of that stuff. Because I leave that those 4 spots are valuable for the station, and the station has has always been ice skating uphill trying to make ends meet. So I let them have those 4 spots most of the time, well, all the time. And yeah, Ginger, because you're as a writer, when people get around to asking, for raises and that kind of stuff, it's the same thing. And for an artist, I think this is the best analogy for it. For an artist, you're always asking for a raise, even when you're asking for the first dime. That's what it feels like, because you would do, you're lucky to be doing what you love for a living, and you appreciate it. So it's hard to talk about that kind of stuff, and I've avoided it for so long. And I think if it's one area where fatherhood has shifted me a little bit, it's my awareness that, if I'm leaving money on the table, or if I'm spending money that I have on other stuff, it's money I'm not putting into my kid's college fund, for example, or those kind of things. And to zero that out and just keep it at base, for me, is enough of a motivation to start doing that. So I thank you guys for helping me, as I venture out into that. And I hope that in doing this, I can inspire you guys to feel more comfortable doing it as well. It's the same thing with why work out and show it online. On the one hand, I'm shaming myself into behaving properly. That helps me, to set a standard in public that I have to match or I will catch shit is helpful to me. It is a useful motivator. And the same thing goes with this kind of thing. If I set a standard in public for what I'm trying to do and I keep matching it, it also, not only does it help me to get motivated, but also it inspires other people to give it a try. Because if I'm capable of doing it, so are you. And it doesn't take much. It just takes a little bit often, if that makes sense. So there you go. Oh, thanks, Can't Stop Lying. I appreciate that, and I wouldn't want to align more than 90% with anybody, because first of all, we're not meant to be clones, and we're meant to be able to, the fact that we line up 90% of the time is very generous on your part or whatever, because I think we all operate in kind of an 80-20 zone of being right and wrong, and we have 20% of the areas of our lives where we're, where most of the time, quite frankly, to be generous, subconscious leftover, damage or misinformation or bad guidance from a very young age has taught us to be habitually off in a bunch of different areas. Things that a lot of times only an incredible focus on creating a new habit or frankly hypnosis will solve. So that 20% where we're all a little bit wrong is where we all help each other hash it out. That's why disagreement, argument, pushing back and forth is valuable. So there you go. What time is it in Nevada when the Bill Press show starts? I have no idea. I don't know when Bill Press is on. Talk about somebody I disagree with more than 20%. There you go. I hear you, Hal. As a teacher, I had to set a standard for my behavior. Right. Shame is the best motivator. Positive affirmations don't in the long haul. It's interesting. I have had this, kind of epiphany about what drives me and how some people being cheered for staying in their lane is what keeps them on the path. And other people, it's bumping against the guardrail and the grind of steel on steel that reminds you. And so it's that has always been more valuable to me. And the internal standard that I set for myself has to be higher than anybody else would have. And when I fall below it, I dig at myself about it until I change, right? And thank you, Julie, for being with us. Thank you for troll hunting and spam hunting, which is what I think a lot of you have to do. So bless you for it. Get it store before it closes. We don't have 24/7 luxury. Yes, thank you for being in here. I know it's what time actually is it there, Julie, when the show is on? I don't know exactly. I'm not in my head right now. I'm not doing the math. We're heading into a future that is frighteningly unprecedented. None of us have a crystal ball, but try not to be scared. Our parents and grandparents had to grapple with an unprecedented as well. No question. So, it's 8:11. Gotcha. PM. Yeah. Well, have a lovely evening, and thank you for interrupting dinner time every Saturday to be with us when you can. So, yeah. Cool. So, and get to the store. Don't worry about it. Bye, Julie. Thank you, everybody. Big round of applause for Julie for all the work she does in there as well. As she's taking off. I would love that, Julie. I hope we can make that arrange. I insist. Bye. So post show. Yeah, and Ginger, has been invaluable over the years. Showing up at shows, being there. She's, I can't thank you enough. Those of you that are able to come to stuff, and I can see with some regularity in the LA area or when we do these meet and greets and whatnot, I'm increasingly getting back to a point where I can do that. Obviously, when Camden was very, very young, that stuff dried up entirely. The idea of meet and greets and tweet ups and that kind of stuff, and the ability to do that on the road kind of dried up. But now I think we're getting back to a stable point where that's possible. Yeah, so yes, I will definitely be getting back to the DC area. They just offered me a show in Arlington again. Yes, there is a show in Oxnard, June 5th. I'm doing a single show there, and then July 17th in Irvine. We need like a VAT tax. Yeah, so let's see. Soon Camden will be old enough to come see everyone too. Yes. Well, he'll be able to come to some of the, the live shows and, just not hear the language. He'll stay in the dressing room or whatever when the place is big enough that the dressing room isn't right off the stage. That's really helpful. But he's 8, so I want to make sure that what I'm talking about I'm in front of him. Yes, at ACDH. Yes, this is true. Already have tickets for Irvine. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Carl, we will make that happen at some point. I had to wait till July. Yeah, no, there's the Oxnard gig is, I'm driving in that day, doing the show and driving back that night. Camden comes my way on the 1st. He just finished school day before yesterday. So he's with his mom for a week, and then he's with me all summer long. Super excited. And yes, I saw the Discovery Cube thing. It's amazing. Yeah, Brad, I have the same problem with Bill. The Buyer's Remorse book was just an unnecessary grenade. Yes. Oxnard is about it's Ventura essentially. So it's about 45 minutes to an hour north of LA. It's very possible he will be at the Irvine show, Carl, or at least in Irvine nearby. I think my mom and Summer will probably go shopping and all that stuff while the show is going on, and then we'll all hang out there. My problem isn't that he's dull. There's a lot of dull. Tom Hartman can be dull sometimes, but he's valuable. My problem with Bill is the circular flying squad. I have not been flying largely because of the weather. It's been so unpredictable, and when I have time, I have to thread a very narrow needle. When I go to Kentucky this summer, I'm going to be at my. I'm taking my son back to hang out with my dad and the family in Kentucky. There is a place called Sporties outside of Cincinnati, and it's where I got all my flying videos and where I get my gear from, my headset and all that stuff, my compass, and so I'm going to go there and finish out my hours. No Chicago dates right now. We're trying to arrange for the fall. Last year, a little bit of inside baseball, but last year, because the China show came up and it was so valuable to me to do it, we scuttled a bunch of dates to do it. And this happens because I'm an actor as well, so we end up killing dates. Like when we had to kill 3 sets of dates because of the one Grey's Anatomy episode, because they kept moving it around. Initially, I was scheduled for one particular week, and then they pushed it 2 weeks, and then they brought it up 3 weeks. So, basically said, you're working 2 weeks from now. Actually, you're working 3 weeks from now. Actually, you're working next week. We have 3 cats, by the way. Or as Donald Trump would say, 3 cats. And so, like, I had to scuttle 3 stand-up weekends for that. So rescheduling them becomes hard. And a lot of clubs, quite frankly, they get a little gun-shy after a little while of that. Well, because of China last year, I had to ditch 15 different stand-up gigs, weekends. And so that gets rough on the clubs, and then trying to crowbar them back in. And Chicago is interesting because there's only Zanies in town, really. And then there is, although I may do a show, I'm thinking I may do a show at the Center on Halstead. I'd like to do a show there. And then, but anyway, and then there's, the Improv's way outside of town. The Improvs are also owned by my former management, who I am no longer with. So after I left them, those gigs dried up for a while. I mean, luckily there's the Punchlines, which are owned by another company, and Helium. Helium's are, they started out as just the one in Philly, and now they've got a bunch of them. They're a good group, and I book a lot of the shows there. Those are good clubs for me to perform in and work in, but I had to scuttle a bunch of them last year, and rescheduling them has been really difficult just because of the timing of it. Yep, it was a bicep shot. It's true. How about Zanies in Chicago suburbs? Yeah, when you do the Zanies in Chicago, you do all 3 of them. They run you around 1-to-1. So you do like one night on Wells, and then you do the one in the suburbs, and then there's one north of the city. You do all 3 of them in a row. How do you know what happened to the comedy club in Bellevue, Washington? The Parlor Live? No, I don't. It was always is it still open? I don't know. I haven't. It was good the last time I was there. Let's see. Yeah, they closed it in April. Here's the thing. I liked performing in that area. That club itself was oh, you didn't get something, Jude? Yeah. It's a weird place, because the comedy club part's closed, the rest of it's still open. And it's one of these things, like, it's a pool hall, then they have bandstands, and then that's running while the stand-up is going on, so it's noisy. It's in the back. You have to line up when other people don't have to line up. People will drift into the showroom. It's just odd. And it's in a mall on the top floor. A lot of those places end up having a short life or what have you. Seattle needs a good comedy club, and it just has never had one. Underground's kind of like a dive bar-y kind of old-fashioned comedy club. It's not unlike the one I went to in Cedar Rapids. But, here's the thing. Like, Summer and I have talked about putting a room together, here in Vegas or those kind of things. Because when I look at it, like, comedy clubs, they are a risky business. They are difficult, but it's way easier than a band-related place than live music is, as far as tech and what's required and all that kind of stuff. It's just that I think the audience, too, thanks to Netflix and whatnot, is saturated with stuff. You can watch a decent stand-up show at home. There's enough of them for every week of the month. We did talk a little bit about, Assange in the top of that, the second hour. Here's my thoughts on Assange, rather than just talk about how comedy clubs are run. Here's my thoughts on Assange. The allegations are that Assange assisted Chelsea Manning in stealing the documents that she gave to WikiLeaks, that he aided and abetted her in the hack itself, and then sought to publish them, which would be a complete a test case of an entirely different wing of the Espionage Act and other stuff that's different than somebody working in the Pentagon sees something illegal. They take that illegal thing to the New York Times and they hand it to the New York Times and they go, you need to show people this. This is evidence of a crime. That is very different than the president of the New York Times, the head, the CEO of the New York Times, or the main editor there, giving malware or a flash drive with a program on it that will download everything that's on a particular laptop or whatever in an instant, to a person saying, okay, you told me something's there, take this, go get it, and then bring it back to me. And then I'll put it online. That is very different. And you are a part of, it's the same law being broken as the whistleblower themselves. Now, there are whistleblower protections, but those pertain specifically to the person who saw the crime and wants the crime to get out in particular. The person who helps them, and this isn't the same as like making copies of the paper they gave them, and the problem is most of these laws are written, you're talking about, this is pre-computer and the ability to dump stuff online. So this is all test cases on this. But that's the difference, is that in this case, because of the internet and how it works, Assange is not simply the publisher, which is what they call the New York Times test, which applied to the Pentagon Papers or any of the stuff that was released through them. The difference with Assange is that he actively was the publisher, but he was choosing what stuff to take and publish. Because you could say that a publisher, let's say there's 9 criminal activities going on, right? Or 9, issues that deserve public scrutiny, right? 3 of them benefit Democrats if they come out, and 6 of them benefit Republicans if they come out. There's a middle zone between two, or better yet, there's 9 of these things. One of them, if it came out, would make Democrats look bad, and one of them, if it came out, would make Republicans look bad, and everyone in the middle just would look bad in general, right? So there's these 9 crimes going on, or 9 issues. So a whistleblower might say, okay, one of these ones in the middle, issue number 5, is really bad, and I want you to publish. I found this stuff out, and I took it to you because I want you to print this because people died and stuff happened. That's valid because the whistleblower themselves, in seeing all 9 of these things, it allows, they made a judgment. They've seen a bunch of things, but this stood out to them as this needs to be seen. And they take it to a publisher and they say, please publish this. There's a huge difference between that and the publisher themselves saying, I'm interested in issue number 9 or issue number 1, not issue number 5. I have specific designs on one of these because I myself have an agenda that I would like to carry out. So here's the way to steal it. Bring it to me. Because it's a less honest, conveyance of news. Now, there's always the chance a whistleblower has an agenda as well, but that's you take that as rote. You take that as understood. But when it comes to a publisher and someone assisting in the gathering of secret intel, and that person has a specific agenda about what they're doing, if they, and it's if Fox News decided that they gave Nunez, if Rupert Murdoch or Sean Hannity or somebody gave Nunez like hacking material and said, go into a skiff and come out with stuff and I'll play it on my show, it would be the exact same problem. So that's how it works out. That's the difference between Assange and the New York Times in this circumstance, because he had an active role, not just in getting the information out, but choosing which stuff he was interested in and which stuff would get out, which is a very dangerous precedent to set, because then you have those who control the means of publication, because understand this would create a standard where if I just call myself a publisher, then technically I'm protected from under whistleblower rules by even when I go and get the stuff. That's really dangerous ultimately on all fronts, because the legal precedent that sets is now Fox News can get anything they want of any Democrat and get away with it because they actually targeted it. It will be interesting to see if the UK actually extradites Assange. I don't think they will. I don't expect that will happen. I do think they will extradite him to Sweden. I don't expect Sweden will extradite him to us. Also, Kevin Goldberg, a legal counsel to the American Society of News Editors with expertise in First Amendment law, says that while Assange isn't a journalist, the new charges will give journalists pause. I think they've always had pause. I mean, look at the Post. Watch the movie The Post. Look at all the President's Men, the back and forth that they had and the argument. And the Post, and like the big moment in the Post, and what makes it in many ways a great movie is what you're seeing on screen, and the circumstance is nothing. It's a woman repeating what she's hearing on the phone. That's the big moment in the movie The Post, right? Is they get the Supreme Court ruling. They don't show the Supreme Court from a dramatic shot and, a drone flying in and, shooting a rotating shot, or, this like amazing cinematography telling this moment. It simply, you see it like the people in the newsroom did at that moment in history. She's on there going, they had the right to publish this. And it'll bring tears to your eyes. It's a beautiful scene in the movie, but it is very different. Than that circumstance. And yes, it might give some pause, but it won't. Again, there is plenty of case law and plenty of precedent to protect journalists and publishers if they simply received the stuff. I mean, it is codified law. The difference is if you help steal it in any way. Now, the only pause is, can I be seen as, if I say, hey, can you bring me this? Is that enough to qualify for, aiding and abetting? It's not. That would be the only pause. And in those circumstances, there'll be a ton of, well, I can't ask you to bring it to me, but if you brought it to me, I would show it. I promise I would, I would be an honest broker of any information you could give me. I mean, look at the exchanges between Woodward and Deep Throat when they were talking to him. What he could say and what he couldn't say, and what they could ask for and what they couldn't ask for, and how they would get corroboration on two fronts. The stuff where they go back and effectively trick one of the witnesses into telling them who the letters in the ledger stood for. They knew G. Gordon Liddy was the G. And yeah, Brad, follow the money was actually not really said by Deep Throat. That was in the, that was just in the script. That was basically taking a bunch of ideas around what they were doing and Deep Throat's direction and isolating it to one line because you've only got 2 hours to tell something that took months. It's which one is, Carl? I'm going to catch back up with you guys. I worked at Children's for years. The Brown Elephant was one of my favorite places. If it was Midnight Madness on Halstead, the stores are open late. This is true. I play Charmageddon for every new guest here. Now I understand half the shit you're talking about. That's awesome. Considering the fact that the Democratic nominee joked about droning him, I'm not surprised. Not saying he shouldn't have released anything on thugs, but it's how people react, right or wrong. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. You don't joke about it if you're going to do it. You're either joking or you pull it and use it. And I actually, as a comedian, when somebody jokes about something, it obviously falls into two categories. Wishful thinking. You're saying what we all wish we could say. And we're all frustrated because, hold on, is the timing off? No? Yeah, a little bit. Hold on. I have to switch these things over to make sure that the audio keeps syncing up. That's so weird. That's a software thing, I think, with Mimo Live. But so when somebody jokes about something, it's either wishful thinking. You're saying what we all wish we could say, right? You know, it's one of those things like, I'd love to joke that shit out. When somebody jokes about, that kind of stuff, especially if you've actually been involved in physical violence in your life, which I have, I know distinctly the difference in the feeling between joking about it and carrying it out. And so when I watch somebody joking about it, I feel like I have a better radar for that. Is Hal Holbrook still alive? I know Dixie Carter. I think so, yeah. Although he is retired from doing the Mark Twain show, and Val Kilmer is doing it, and quite well. It was rather chilling to hear Trump get questions about treason and its implication for the use of the death penalty. He didn't miss a beat in his answer to the people investigated that are traitors. Yeah, he didn't flinch at that at all. I will say, however, I also think he doesn't take that word seriously. I just think he knows the power of it. And so he's just bandying it about. And he's not ready to, carry it through. Yeah. Yeah, he's still alive. He's an old dude. The Brexit party has people in each actual party and actually agree, hence the problem. Yeah, well, Brexit is absurd. But again, that's Russian interference right there. I mean, they drove both sides of that argument. Basically, the idea is get everybody fighting amongst themselves. Make sure that people separate tribally. And it's probably true, Hal, for today at least. Yeah. You want, again, Putin himself couldn't make Republicans hate the FBI. Think of the amount of people that it would take, like agents from the outside in the old days, to get that to work. And now, he's got Trump in there nonstop, destroying the CIA, the FBI. You got, Barr, releasing, the idea is the threat of releasing intel. Not a fan of Kilmer. I am. He's a bit of a mess, but I love him. All Hals are cool except Hal 9000. Yeah. I want Harris, maybe Mayor Pete and Biden together for president plus vice president would be a perfect candidate. I agree, Liberty. I think I think there's very obvious talk about Biden Harris as a possibility. I think she's really strong, especially on a vice presidential. Like, her debating Pence would just be gorgeous. I mean, her debating Trump would be great as well. Biden won't be VP again. Biden will either be the nominee or he won't be in. Do you know that, Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday. And by the way, so I was doing research for this new podcast that I'm doing, which only Patreons will get to hear first. And I was doing, it takes a ton of research. It like just the studying that I'm having to do for it is really invigorating and fun. But so I'm reading and I've got the TV on and Tombstone came on. And I'd enjoyed that, and I like Kurt Russell. I think he's a good example of someone that I politically disagree with, but I love, and I respect his opinions on stuff. I don't necessarily feel that way about Gary Sinise, although I think he's a good man from his point of view. But Kilmer is so good in that. And the scene at the end where he's dying as Doc Holliday, he's got tuberculosis and he's in a sanatorium and Wyatt Earp keeps coming to visit him and he's like, if you ever had any love for me, would just get up and leave right now. Don't ever. Just if you ever cared for me, please leave. It's so heartbreaking. And it brought me to tears. Like there were a couple of moments in that movie that I mean I've always enjoyed it in the abstract. But when Paxton, and, because Paxton is actually passed, when he dies as, his brother he's on the pool table, after, and then when Kilmer dies at the end, like he's not a Trumper, he's just conservative. No, he's not a Trumper. And you're right, Kurt, Silverado is fantastic. Best acting that Kevin Costner has ever done. I like Kevin Costner in general, but holy shit. I mean, the only character I think you could argue he's ever played. Not that he couldn't. But, man, the end, like, where he's done, is just, heartbreaking. Kurt Russell, there's a meme about him talking against Dems, but it was proven to be false. Yeah, he's just conservative, and that's okay. There are a lot of people who genuinely have their beliefs about that stuff, and you can genuinely have a conversation with them, and there's no need to vilify them in that process. They are not the same people who are like, the open carry AR-15, I should be able to walk through a mall with a loaded machine gun if I so choose. He's not that. So again, you gotta be able to find a bridge with people that you disagree with or whatever. Kurt Russell's one of those where I think you can, and I've always loved his work. I mean, Big Trouble in Little China alone, again, the man could print garbage the rest of his career, and still, because we have that, it's fantastic. But insofar as Val Kilmer and Tombstone, like it's such a beautiful performance, and his accent, which is very specific. I'll be your Huckleberry, where he's talking through his teeth and relatively slow. He was trying to find it. He went to an accent coach to find an accent that they could kind of bridge and create Doc Holliday off of what he might have sounded like. And the guy that they found was, it's an old wax cylinder kind of thing, but the guy's voice was so high-pitched and this kind of thing, but he spoke so slowly that it made everything sound funny to him, and it made him just laugh, because the man spoke with his long draw. And so he's like, if I just lower that to an acceptable motion, that might make it just a little bit funnier while being realistic. Big Trouble is one of the most awesome bad acting of all time. I don't know that it's bad, although I will say that Kim Cattrall that's the worst performance she's ever turned in, but I think it's because of how you understand that kind of directing. Really difficult. Maybe I just don't like Southern accents. That's entirely your purview. That is within your purview. That is absolutely your right in some way or another. If you feel in some way Why, Johnny Ringo, you look like someone just walked over your grave. Just talking through the front of his teeth. I used to live in a town where Holiday practiced dentistry in Fayetteville, Georgia. That's amazing. I grew up in the 50s, so when I think of Doc Holliday, I think of Douglas Fowley and the life and legend of Wyatt Earp. Yeah. I mean, but it's a beautiful portrayal. There's a lot of great stuff, in that. But yeah. If we're not back in 20 minutes, call the president. Yeah, from Big Trouble in Little China. In Big Trouble, the acting made the film so great you can't stop watching it. Absolutely. And there's a difference between, presentational acting and representational acting. And musicals often fall into the presentational realm, while like dramatic film falls into is the representational kind. And where you're being as opposed to acting and, or performing, whereas musicals require a lot of performing, but not a lot of intrinsic. And the people who could bridge those two, like I would always say Gene Wilder is one of those people, and Gregory Hines was the same way, where they could do both at the same time. So could Richard Pryor, for that matter. I gave the chorus second viewing based on something Hal said long ago. Oh, thanks. Confederate Memorial has already passed. Dixie Day coming up at the end of July, usually one of the hottest days of the year. That's right. It's got to be miserable. That's right. Also, I think John Carpenter directed Big Trouble in Little China and The Thing. Yeah, absolutely. And Escape from New York. Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China is just, it is a piece of perfection. I think, yeah. Oh yeah, from his 4 or 5 episode specials, which wasn't a series, but was a series, but not quite. They did the short run series with him. Hugh Jackman can do both, I think. I agree. Mm-hmm. I think he's more comfortable presentational, though. That's interesting. Call me Snake. How earlier we went over Keanu Reeves, how bad his acting skills are, but how great his movies are. You have to watch them. I do. I like Keanu. And interestingly enough, his acting, they're just moments he's uncomfortable with, and they're usually the bigger moments because he's kind of an introvert. So it's work for him. If you let him stay an introvert, look at Ryan Gosling in Drive. You could argue that in Drive, he has arguably a bad moment along the lines of John Wick. Yeah, I'd say I'm back. That kind of thing. Aw, thank you. Trying to get an official Hal promotion with these good vibes. Oh, good vibes. There you go. Sending vibes your way, Zelda Chick. Thank you so much. There's a what you could argue was a Keanu moment of rough acting in Drive, but they cut away. They just fade away when he's yelling at Bryan Cranston. They just go away from it. Sowing the seeds of love. Jamie White, because no Shakespearean actor ever said whoa so many times. Yeah. It's a good imitation of William Hartnell as Doctor Who being mistaken for Doc Holliday. Thank you. I am an FBI agent. Right. Keanu puts in the work for the action in all the John Wick movies. He certainly does. Like what the behind the scenes and how it was made videos are as exciting in some ways as the movie itself. I haven't seen John Wick 3 yet. I'm very excited to do it. Don't tell me. No spoilers. I don't care. Ellie Warner Point Break was awesome, partly because of who directed. Yes. Yeah, Zelda Chick, the only rough part in all of Speed for me was when they were fighting on the bus and he went, hey. It was just, and he could stop everybody just by saying, hey. What's a John Wick? Oh my God. John Wick is imagine a centipede with a gun on each leg with wings that flew around you and just shot. Like it's gun porn. All I'm just saying is never kill a man's dog. Wick is shaping up to be one of the strongest series ever. If he nails 3, it will be very impressive to have 2 sequels that are as good as the original Rare. Yeah, but there's also, they allow the mythology to exist. That's one of the great things about it. So there you go. Have your mythology. You don't have to explain everything. I think that's one of the things we learned from the Avengers. Everybody's seen Endgame by now, right? Don't forget to hit the like. We got 183 people in here, 184. Welcome, whoever just came in. We got 142 likes. So if you haven't, please hit that. I greatly appreciate it. Endgame is amazing. Yes. You have not seen it, Michelle? Oh, okay. Did go on a bit. Well, it depends on how much you're invested, I suppose. Okay, Zelda Chick's going tomorrow. I'm all right. Way behind on the Marvel movies. I did not like, I've confessed to this before, but I didn't really like Captain America, the first Avenger, the first time I saw it. And now it's my favorite individual, not mashup, movie. Obviously, the Avengers and the other ones have a lot going for them. But as far as the individual characters having their own movie, Captain America runs away with it for me. Scanner Darkly is, yes, that's a great example. That's also a good example of patchwork Robert Downey Jr., where they're bringing him back into the fold. Britt wanted to see Aladdin. As we left, I passed the theater playing Endgame, and the theme music nearly drew me in like Pavlov's dogs. Yeah, it's tough. Not seen Endgame. Must admit, I have no interest. All right. It's a good drama. If I always joke that the Game of Thrones people, I get just as much emotional satisfaction from the Avengers movie with like a third of the time commitment. We have 41 patrons now, by the way. Since I started this push, by the way, and thank you guys for joining in. Let me look because that one was brand new. Let's see. And thank you guys, the ones who joined the private Google Hangout that we were able to do. That's my first one. I know some of you couldn't make it, and it was kind of semi-last minute, but it was, it's a good start. And yeah. So, but we now have, we have 43 patrons now. When I started this push, and guys, I love you for putting up with me trying to build this into something, because part of having a high number of patrons is not just that it helps support the show and all the gear I've been able to purchase and make the show better because of this. But I have to say, part of why I want a bunch of patrons on there is because there are so many right-wing hacks and monsters that have so many patrons. It's embarrassing. Like literally, like lefties, we scramble for scraps while the right-wingers have literally thousands of patrons, and it's, to me, from the left side of things, it's embarrassing for us. Like even the relatively well-known, like David Pakman and those, like the numbers don't even, get in the ballpark. So having some on the board about it, and having, getting up to 100 or getting up to, a couple of hundred over time, as we grow this to the point where it actually is, is a regular thing where I could get us a studio and a producer. Having the ability to do that based on the show shows a level of sort of commitment and worth on our side that just isn't there. No worries. If you can't do it, you know me, I do the show anyways. I really appreciate you guys. Oligarchs finance the right-wing talkers, hard to compete with that level. Exactly. But while they do that, they also, because of the advertising and because of the reach, they do have a lot more individual patrons, which is something we all could do, but we just don't. I don't think Tom Hartman uses it. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to look it up. I doubt it. But it's one of those things where I feel like it would benefit, if more, progressive and liberal broadcasters, YouTubers, and the like started using it more, it would bring more of that crowd. Because right now it's just a sequestered bunch of random super fans and right wingers. Because I think all but 3 or 4 of the new patrons are people who've never used Patreon before. Oh, Tom does? Good. Okay. I agree Norman Goldman should still be on the air. His problem was that, again, the cost of doing the show outlives, he had 2-3 staff members too. It's just hard. And with Bain Capital buying up all the stations and you don't get the ad revenue, which used to be able to run the station, and the Heritage Foundation pays Rush Limbaugh's salary. He can lose all of his advertisers. That was the funny thing. Everybody ditching on him except Build-A-Bear and My Pillow, and yet he can still stay afloat. Yes, Norman should have used Patreon. I agree, and maybe he will. And Tom Hartman's wife is his staff. Yeah, and he's so well read, and he does all of his stuff. He and I both do all of our own research in that regard. That's good news. Well, maybe I'll start bugging the people who support Tom to support our show as well. Game of Thrones jumped the shark 3 years ago. It's funny. My roommates were just yapping about it. They're just, we got a band house in LA right now because we're all together working on music. And so Bumper and Chad live in the house. And so they watch Game of Thrones, and they were just chomping at the bit. They were, they had their friend over. They were all tearing up at the end, and I appreciate that. I like when people get that involved in something, but they would just, back and forth about it, and I just didn't find it. I just didn't watch it. I had so much else going on. 8 effing years to finish a book, which isn't done yet, wasn't a thing the writers could foresee. Exactly. It's like Lost. They got into that without any plan on getting out. Let's see. Yeah, so I never watched it, and so they finished the final episode, and I would. It was late, and they were I sat down with them. I'd come in. I'd been working all day, and I collapsed, and we had band rehearsal that earlier that day, and it was just a stacked day, and I couldn't speak because I was protecting my voice. So I sat down on Sunday night, and I'm they're watching. I watched the tail end, and I have no idea what's going on. It's all goodbyes. Now, on a personal level, I get teary when a character leaves a show, even if I don't regularly watch the show, because I know from experience what it's like to lose an actor you work with on a show. Either they've been fired, or they're leaving to go do something else, or they've quit, or what have you, or their storyline is done, or their character dies, or what have you. Especially if you've been doing it for years, it's painful. So on a personal level, I get weepy. I know those episodes. I can see them a mile away. There was an episode when Mandy Patinkin's character left Criminal Minds. He wasn't on there for very long. And then Joe Montana came in, and a couple other people started to phase out. And when Shamar Moore moved over and started doing SWAT, he left. Those last episodes where they're giving you your goodbye, and then they finally do the episode where your friends are, they're telling you the little story. Remember when we blah, 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 and the first time we met, and yada, yada. These are actors in their most real. If you see people crying on a show where a character is leaving, their heart is breaking at that moment in reality, because that's a real separation. The irony is when Uncle Vic died on Queer as Folk, when Jack Weatherall's character passed, he was back 2 weeks later as a ghost, tormenting Brian. and he was probably in the show more often for a while after he died. But when we didn't know that coming up, and when we were leading up to him leaving, it was rough. It was rough, and I know, and Sharon did such great work around his death and all that. She was just wonderful, and it's because we were all carrying that goodbye, and we said goodbye to a bunch of characters on there. So when I'm watching this last episode of Game of Thrones and they're all crying and saying goodbye to each other, even though I don't know the story, I know the real story. I know what the actors are going through and how they're trying to hold it together, and how it's hard to even shoot some scenes because you're going to start crying while you're doing it. I've never put up the video of the last episode of Lab Rats, the final regular show when TJ and Spencer were moving on and we were going to lose them for good. That last scene that we went through, I'll put it up on the channel someday. We were all just aching, because we'd spent the last 6 years going through life with these kids. And yeah, so all of those scenes, when you see an actor on a show and another actor's leaving the show, even if they're going to do something better, even if they're going, that person's in your life more than sometimes your family, and then they go off and do another show, you're not going to see them. Their own family's going to see them left. They have a new family over there, So for me, there's a connection that I see in those situations or whatever. So we finished watching, the tail end. I didn't know what was going on, but I was kind of feeling it the same way they were. And then after they went to bed, I watched the first episode, mainly because I'm we got 180 people in the chat room. That's impressive. Thank you, guys. We got 152 likes, so 30 of you are slacking. So smash that like, please. Thank you. Like and subscribe. I'll remember. Thank you. Can't stop lying. So I watched the first episode largely because as a writer and as a developer of shows and that kind of stuff, I sit there and I want to see what the impact was on the first episode. When a show's been running for a long time, going back and watching the pilot is very illuminating for me, because this is what caught people, what snagged them. And I know what the trick was beyond it, the promise of a story, which is what they did. The first few episodes especially it was just a loose end after a loose end after a loose end, all predicated on violence and sex. So that was very much a dopamine reaction. But the same thing that happened in Endgame, if you haven't seen it yet, this won't spoil it for you. But what Endgame does, even though it's long, is that the shots don't linger, especially the moments you're seeking. Moments of connection between characters, moments like kisses, hand-holding, hugs, eye contact, all that stuff is genuine but cuts off early, because it feels like, oh, I'm still in the moment that just passed and this new moment is being thrust upon me. And that's how you keep something moving. And the first Game of Thrones is full of that. So from a filmmaking standpoint, it's scope, the promise of a story that will be told later, and then cutting away when you think it's going to be there. Bob Newhart is always golden. This is true. 16 and Under was the best show on television. I was just thinking about news radio because I was thinking about how Stephen Root and The Man in the High Castle, right? Newhart is a great man. We're talking TV, The Great Unifier, yeah. Yeah. Look at that. I've still got 158 likes. We got 177 people in here. You can share the show right now because people can join right now. So if you guys want to tweet out the show, that helps us immensely. I don't know how let's see. Where's this thing? How do we, here? There it is. Let's see. We're live. Come join us. There we go. Post to Facebook. There you go. And then, let's see. Tweeting it out. Copy. All right. I'm just tweeting right now, so excuse me for a moment while I get that together. Why did that not happen? What's happened over there? We're live at infotainmentwars.com. Join the chat. Like and subscribe. I'm getting better at this. I really am. Was it Amanda Plummer has that, like, the power of ask, you know? She's amazing. Let's see. There we go. There we go. All right, let me get back to the chat. Hold on one second. Popping those up there. Notifications. There we go. Close that window. I'm trying to use this new internal bot thing. Yeah, news radio is rough. I mean, how did you send me mail? I did. I used to walk home from elementary school for lunch and watch the banana splits while I had lunch before walking back to school. The old days for sure. HR puff and stuff was very trippy. Yes, it was. Thanks, Sheldon and Amy were one of the greatest TV couples of all time. Amazing growth of both characters. That's lovely. Cinema Snob did a BBT binge video that lasts as long as Endgame. It's funny. Oh, the banana splits. Now that's some old school TV. Yeah. I have to say that the final episode of The Big Bang Theory was one of the best final episodes I've seen. Of course, I'm a science nerd, right? Happy birthday, Elaine. Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you for hanging in as long as you did. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Oh, yeah, I forgot. I haven't advertised these in a long time either. You guys already know about them, though. So it's, but just keeping the habit. Ta-da. Not old enough to remember banana splits. That's adorable. I didn't really watch Worst Endings since, How I Met Your Mother was the worst ending. Oh. I just remember, I think the biggest show ending I remember, besides shows I've actually been on, is MASH. MASH was crucial because it was the first time Son of a Bitch was said on American television. And they had to fight for it in court, saying that it was artistically necessary. Okay, wash dry 2 of 3 started for my niece's new guinea pig underlay. Oh, there you go. Julie Hoffman is going crazy now. Let me head it for 1795. Did I start something with the banana splits? Yes, you did. Al, if you get a chance to say happy birthday to Joyce, she turned 65 yesterday. Oh, wow. Happy birthday, Joyce. Hold on. That's really lovely. Hold on. There you go. I just tweeted it at her. There we go. Thanks for joining us, anybody who's jumped in here just now. We're doing a little post-show hangout. It's always a good time. Feel free to like and subscribe. We're getting to the point where our concurrent viewer numbers and our likes are getting similar, which is a nice thing. You have to pay to sing happy birthday. That's true. Yes, it's Breaking Bad, best recent show finale by a long time. You know, my problem with Breaking Bad was, and I enjoyed it as a drama, and I certainly enjoyed the acting, was you know my running issue with anti-heroes, that we are flooded with anti-heroes because we're so afraid of having real heroes. And the show after a while got to be repetitive. It's like, we're going to cook again. We got to stop cooking. They're on to us. Oh, we got to start cooking again. Oh, we're not going to cook anymore. Oh, they're going to make us cook. Oh, we got to start cooking again. It was aggravating. Can't comment until you like. That's right. Don't say anything until you've liked the show, at least. If you're watching and you're not in the chat room, that's fine too. You can click the like as well. Subscribe to the channel. That actually helps us immensely. And again, we're trying to pump these numbers up because we're ice skating uphill against people who've already been in, who've got a stranglehold on a lot of what's out there. And obviously, most of my videos are like this one. They're hours long. So it's a big deal and a time commitment for people. So obviously these views are going to be lower than the ones, 3-minute videos that have 4 million clicks. But we're doing substantially better thanks to you guys and thanks to the sharing and people just investing their time in the show itself. We used to never crest over 400 views. Now every episode has at least 1,500 full views watching the whole show. And that's, since we only have 200 people in the chat room, that means a lot of people are engaged. Likes over watchers achieved. That's right. We've done it. So that's it's a big step forward. So I thank you guys. I enjoyed Hell on Wheels. I enjoy that Cinderella song as well. Warner Music lost the Happy Birthday lawsuit. No royalties against using anymore. Yeah. I bailed on Walking Dead after a certain point before Glenn died, though. Thank God. Oh, I left when they killed him. I was like, okay, I'm done. Lost ending is so misunderstood, though. That's kind of the showrunner's fault for not explaining it very well. Well, they had to leave it open because it didn't make sense. It only makes sense if you're willing to do the gap part of it. I believe that QAnon is the Lost of our generation, and that plot lines like Lost set that up. Sadly, speaking of that, you now have to prove that you paid to watch a movie before you can leave a comment on Rotten Tomatoes. Sad. Well, that was because of the issues about Captain Marvel, I guess. That's right. That's exactly Evernum. That's the point. Yeah. You use a ticket stub. SoCal Suzy Q. Deborah Stanoff is 67, which means she's outliving people. Her mother died 32 years old. There you go. Michael, I wanted that series to go on another several years. It was so good. One of the Mr. Davenports. How did you find us, Armani? Yes. Well, I sent out, oh my God, it's Mr. Davenport. Go figure. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's right. I'm not actually Mr. Davenport. I played him on television, but we're very similar in a lot of ways. The only difference between the two of us is that my ego is way bigger than his is. So yeah, so there you go. Do you have to take a photo of it? I think you can scan your ticket stubs and that kind of thing. QAnon is the lost narrative of our time. What did I miss out? Yeah. Yeah, you have to use an online ticket. You can't just like with your phone scan the QR code that would be on your printed one. Oh, Battlestar Galactica, yeah. Oh, thanks, Anna. I appreciate that. Characters are characters and not actual people. What? When did that start? Wait a second. Armani, they mean like how did you find the chat room and all that kind of stuff? Because largely, we're an insular little crowd over here. We're glad to have you, but this isn't one of those things like, the Rogan podcast or those kind of things that get plenty of push. We're the little show that could over here. So we're happier there. And the number's going back up too. I'm actually a character. Aren't we all? Don't we all kind of play a character in life? I looked up a Lab Rats episode. Oh, I see. And you were scanning and you found that I was just live online. Well, that's cool. What? Six. I think of you as Michael. Well, all right. I understand that. Then my stand-up might be upsetting. I actually like the fact that good guys in BSG remake worship a polytheistic pantheon of gods while the Cylons worship God in the remake. Andrews. Yeah. You need to use Fandango that they own. Yeah. I know that's true, Jude. You are a character all your own, and you do switch around. Thank you, Armani. I loved Lab Rats, too. Appreciate it. Dan Quayle is an idiot. Are we just going to state the obvious? Are we just typing water is wet now? Is that what we're doing? I watched Lab Rats when I was a kid. It's weird to see you and interact with you. It's weird to hear you even say as a kid, because since it ended 4 years ago. I don't see how it's Michael. Michael is a whole other person. Well, thank you. But it didn't have a last episode. Not really. I mean, I consider the episode where the teams split and one was going to the island and the other one was moving on. That happened where Spencer and TJ left. I consider that the final episode myself before we started the Elite Force stuff, which personally I didn't think was a smart move, and the showrunners didn't really have a choice about. That was a Disney upstairs decision. Personally, I'm glad I saw I Love the 80s before QAF. That would have been jarring. It's true. Me and my sister and my friends are going to see Aladdin live action tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Oh, that's cool. Water is bigly. It's true. So good. Water. Hal would smack Michael upside the head in a very snap out of it kind of way. This is true. The way I like to look at it is that there's obviously elements of myself that are in the characters that I've played. But if I'd have to define it, I have a bigger ego than Donald Davenport, and I'm kinder than Michael. And I can lift more than they can put together. Water is we have the wettest water you've ever seen, and Mar-a-Lago in the water. It's just how we do it. Because excuse me. The water. This is you are fake news. That is not water. Were you in Spider-Man? Yes, I was. Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi ones. Yeah. Monkeys, lions, humans, and more do not like rain to get wet. Sorry, we haven't been commenting. We got blocked by Julie for some unknown reason. Oh, hi, Catherine. It happens when you repeat a lot of stuff. That's what it is. When you keep doing the same thing over again, or asking, lab rat stuff out of context. She'll do that sometimes. It's okay. Welcome back. That's what I'm trying to do. Make it palatable, make politics palatable for a generation. You youngins out there, eventually you're going to be voting. I want you to care about this place. I want you to respect the fact that this democracy is an experiment and requires a lot of people. In all caps will do that. Requires a lot of people to actually care about it for it to function, unlike a monarchy or a theocracy, which you just have to fear and follow. And it's it requires constant gardening. It requires respect, and you can't take it for granted because it'll be taken away in a heartbeat. So, in real life, Al, you have the biggest heart. Well, thank you. I try, Brad. I really do. Man, yeah. You make a good impression of Donald Trump. Thank you. It's not my serious impersonation. I have a better, kind of more realistic one, but I think it's way more fun to almost do him. Excuse me. That's way more fun than trying to do it for, honestly. And it's ridiculous anyway. I feel weird talking to you, and I used to watch you wishing I was bionic. Well, there's some upsides to being bionic, and in your lifetime, it's not out of the question. My buddy Joey who is a double amputee. He was in Iraq, lost both of his legs. His prosthetics that he used have gyroscopes in them and stabilizers. They have, unfortunately, they have to be charged every night. And if he forgets his charger, his legs don't work, which is really rough. But I mean, was impossible 15 years ago in a lot of ways, and now is the norm. And because he has both legs, and he's basically bionic at this point, bless his heart. And in 10 years, we're going to start seeing the first people getting optional prosthetics. You watch. I think Tammy Duckworth does have a set of those, but I don't know. And it may be, it depends on your wound and how possible it is. But it's pretty great. I recently shared that awkward Spider-Man elevator scene. Well, thank you for sharing that, Michael. I have, it's funny. Have you seen the movie Little Shop of Horrors? Oh, of course I have. Yeah, I mean, as a Steve Martin fan, I see everything that he's in. And I'm not a fan of musicals, but between him and Rick Moranis, I felt completely safe. Nobody does Trump better than Al Sparks. Some people say, believe it. Yeah, I have some people, most people, excuse me, most people say I do the best Trump that, people have ever, and there's a lot of, it's great, and nothing's better. So, Tammy was my congressperson at one point. Now she's one of my senators. That's a good thing. My Little Pony is going to get a Sopranos ending. Oh, no. I hope it doesn't get a Godfather ending. One of the ponies wakes up with an Italian gangster's head in their bed. Anything in New York, August 6th to 15th? Not currently, but I will look specifically for that. What I ever do to you, Steve Martin, and Little... Yeah. His character in Little Shop of Horrors in a lot of ways was the precursor to My Blue Heaven, which is one of his most absurd roles. It's just crazy. The Adderall helps you imitate him better. Yeah, I need some fresh ground up Adderall to snort and Sudafed now, I guess. I have to I got to find that picture. But holy smokes, did you see the story about the doctor that used a 3D printer to create middle ear bones for a patient and restored hearing completely? Yes, I did. I shared an early one of that a long time ago. I love the movie Little Shop of Horrors. We have you should watch it so many times. I love Rick Moranis and Steve Martin. Yes, they're fantastic. They give me hope because I kind of look like a cross between them. I'm not as square-jawed as Steve Martin, but I'm not as goofy looking as Rick Moranis, and I feel like I'm in a sweet spot as far as looks and comedy that, parlayed correctly. Ooh. Oh, I'm out of sync again? Thank you. Let me know. Thank you for keeping me on my twos. I'll fix it. Where are you? Hey, now we're back in sync. Thank you for letting me know. Yeah, the drawer to his left in the picture, he's it's just full of Sudafed. I love the 3D printing of legs for dogs to help walk on YouTube. Yeah, it's adorable. I miss the doctor and the ear bone printing on the 3D printer. I have a 3D printer, and I have now a laser cutter that I'm experimenting with because I'm trying to make some one-of-a-kind special stuff for my patrons. I know I work too hard at this stuff. There's so many people who just skate by this, and all they do is wave, and they get away with it, but I just can't do it. So I have this laser cutter, which was really cheap, and I'm going to try and make some one-of-a-kinders for you guys. I sent you a fan mail. Did you get it yet? I don't know. Where did you send it? Did you email? Is it an email, or did you send an actual letter to the 1515 address? I didn't know. If you're not a bot, why'd you ask what Hal does for a job? Who asked what I do for a job? Yeah, Armani's not a bot. I'm an actor and a comedian. I basically do this for free. You saw Lab Rats, though, right, Armani? That's a job. Yeah. Because everyone knows how job is. Yeah. I do the same. How it's an excuse to have fun making cool stuff anyways. Exactly. You missed my take on Assange? Really? I did the whole rundown of it earlier in this hour. I swear to God. Basically, that whistleblowers are protected by the, whistleblower status under the thievery of looking at something they see as criminal and bringing it to light. Whereas a publisher can seek to make someone pick something specific. Go, of these 9 things that are going on that I could print about, go find me this. I will help you get that information to me, which means you're ignoring certain crimes and pushing certain other ones. And the precedent set by publishers who are able to get away with doing that would be horrifying. That's the cliff notes of what I said. I should write a book. I agree. But But a live show is so much better than anything online, don't you think, Hal Sparks? Yes. It depends. You mentioned Escape from LA earlier. I've got an idea for a sequel. Want to hear it? Absolutely. Escape from Atlanta? No, that's, technically speaking, that would be Walking Dead. You haven't seen Lab Rats? You should. I'm adorable. Yes, welcome, Armani. Welcome those who are joining us on their lunch hour. I'm only going to be on for another 9 minutes. I'm out at 12:30. So grub up my friend Sam Balam. Yes. A horde of skinheads from the north are on a trek to kidnap Kamala Harris, Pam Grier in San Francisco. All right. Escape from San Francisco? Is that what it's going to be? Late to the post show, any topic up for discussion? We're kind of all over the map here because we've invited some other fun people in who are asking, more pop culture related stuff, which is totally cool. And then we also talked about the Assange charges, the new charges, and why they're different from, say, what would be the New York Times and that kind of called Escape from the U.S. All right. 2:30 and hangry here. Yeah. Understood. It's a kid show and I'm not a teenager. I don't know. I think about it, then forget. I understand. Love watching little kids recognize Hal once. It was so cute. Yeah, it's a different experience. The best thing is gay couples with kids, and neither one, the kids and the parents, don't know who knows me from what. That happens, Susan. That's okay. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're new to the show, please give us a thumbs up. Like and subscribe to the channel. Please spread it around. Share it. That helps us immensely. I'm trying to grow this thing into something. Just so we always have an outlet we can go to no matter what I'm working on. Obviously, you guys know I do this show from the road a good amount of time. Most of the summer, I'm going to be locked down editing and writing and doing all that kind of stuff. So, and in Vegas, I might be doing some shows there as well. Can't tell my Houseworks fan. Follow House New. Yes. Yeah. You can follow at Nerd Halen on Twitter as well. We're going to be doing some shows that I believe Nerd Halen, or Nerd Halen, is one of those things that's just going to magically blow everything else out of the water. You watch. It'll be so weird. CSL really earning that PR title. Absolutely. I mean, a total pro. And honestly, can't stop lying. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be as on it about promotion as I should be. And I watch other YouTubers and influencers with envy at their ability to sell themselves in that regard. And it's just, yeah. And yes, I love the idea of doing the Comedy Castle. We'll see if that actually works out. That's up to them though. And it's also timing because a lot, like I said, I had to kill a bunch of shows. Michigan, 2 weekends in Michigan were killed last year, and rescheduling them just means crowbarring them in with other shows. It might not be till the fall that stuff starts kicking up. I have faith in Nerd Halen. Yeah, it's something. Yeah, I agree. CSL deserves a raise. I owe him a free matcha. A Talk Soup stand-up night would be nice. You, Joel McHale, and Aisha Tyler. I've talked back and forth about them. That's a hard one to thread, or at least it was, because Aisha was on Criminal Minds, so her schedule was being eaten up by that. I think that would be genius. The 4 out of 5 of us that do stand-up, including John Henson, doing, a show would be kind of amazing. Yeah, I got 5 minutes left. 6 minutes an hour. That's right. The fact that there are people LARPing you already, I know that was crazy. People showed up at the show dressed like Nerd Halen at our very first gig. So I have faith that this is something that has some legs, and it's such a joy to do. And if you haven't seen the clips, I'm doing my best to be a sound-alike to David Lee Roth on all those songs. And eventually, when we work some Van Hagar songs in, to do those as well. Let us know where to call and request your show, Comedy Castle. Well, that's the thing, too, is any comedy club near you where you can go, is Hal Sparks coming anytime? Always helps. Always. Weekly, it helps. Daily, it might be much. But, even just calling regularly and going, because they assume, they know that if one person calls, then 15 people would like to come. So they kind of, they bounce it off of that. It's like the old fan letters standard, that if somebody bothered to write a letter, then obviously 15 people probably like you more, enough to watch something, even if they're not the letter writing type, right? I wish Tyler did the Ubisoft E3 conferences. I just got invited to E3 to the, I think, let me see. This just came up. They just invited me. Where is it? Yeah, the Ubisoft at E3 booth and the VIP lounge. They want me to come there and do some glad handing and play some games and that kind of stuff. I will probably be there on, I think it's Friday the 13th. So we'll make that happen. And so insofar as do I have shows coming up, the only ones I have on the books right now that aren't way in the fall are, or like around December or something, are the Oxnard and the Irvine show currently, because we are literally patching together, because we were supposed to go back to China in the spring. We didn't book them. Then they moved that. Now they're selling the show. They're in the middle of editing all these episodes. And so I've got time until we're probably going back maybe September, but they have to work around my schedule now because that's how the contract and the re-up worked. So I've got the freedom to start booking stuff and they can build it. And so I will be able to kind of steady that. And same thing with the Nerd Halen shows and 01 shows. Yeah, I'll announce shows probably first week of June. We'll have a bunch more nailed down. Agents are looking into those right now. So the Putey Poot. Yes, exactly. I'm old. What is LARP? LARPing is dressing up as a character. Think Ren Fair. Think Comic-Con, where you LARP as a character. You dress up as a character. Yes, 2 minutes away. TikTok. So I will start a little bit of the wrapping up. What's your favorite Rick Moranis movie? Strange Brew. Yeah, live action role playing. Thank you, Evernum. John Voight is indeed nuts. Sad but true. He's kooky. Still a capable actor, just crazy. So you walk around dressed like that is the idea. And it used to be, LARPing came about because of people dressing up like cartoon characters, doing a live action version of them. Now it kind of applies to almost everything, whether it's a cartoon character or an actual, physical representation of the character, it is very nerdy. But to show up that way, yes, Rocky Horror shows, people LARP Rocky Horror, yes. So there you go. So like and subscribe to the show. Thank you guys for hanging in there. By the way, I'm going to sign off. I've got 1 minute left. Okay. Thank you guys so much for hanging in there. Thank you for your Patreon support. Bless you guys. We're, the fact that we went up an extra person just while the show was going on gives me faith. If you can at all support the show through that, please do. I'm trying to reach 100 on there as a point of pride. We're trying to reach 10,000 subscribers on here. The same thing with like my Twitter and Facebook and stuff. I kind of let those language and just spoke from the heart on those, as I often do, but I didn't really promote them for a long time. And so much of what happens in the industry these days is predicated on how many followers and supporters and they can look at, because they don't even look at your work. They look straight at that number. So I'm now doubling down on my investment in making that grow. So that, because again, in the industry, you can't guarantee a yes, but you can eliminate a no. And that's what I always have to do. So thank you guys for helping me do that. Thank you to Carl and Julie for moderating for us. Thank you, Can't Stop Lying, for helping me, push through this stuff. And thank you guys who are Patreon supporters. And thank you to guys who aren't necessarily followers of the radio show, but just hop in here for, because I'm a comedian or an actor, or you've seen me in other stuff. I appreciate you guys even just dropping by for this, because it is not what you normally expect from an actor or a comedian or a musician or whatever, but it's something that I do as a civic duty in a lot of ways. And so I thank you for your patience with this if this is not what you sought to hear from me. And we'll be doing more of this stuff. If you do the Patreon, I'm a little more personal, and we talk a little bit more loosely and not politicky, in that we will doing as we go up to the election a lot more of the politics specific stuff in relation to DNC events and stuff like that I think we can be helpful with, like a strategy session that I don't want to just do an open forum, because I think it's only for people who take it seriously. So there you go. So patreon.com/HalSparks, cameo.com/HalSparks if you want a video. Of course, follow me on Twitter @HalSparks and Instagram @HalSparks, and of course the HalSparks Fang page, FANG, on Facebook. So thank you guys so much. If you can't donate, that's totally fine. I will continue to do this stuff for free. That stuff that I do over there will just be specific for Patreon, but and I will do some more just kind of fun hang around stuff over the summer. Along with the political show. But this Saturday show is about that. And so I'm dedicated to that. So you need to know that coming in, that this is my focus. So if you're going to be here, awesome, but don't get frustrated, because that's what this show is for. HSRPM is a political talk show, and that's its value insofar as I'm concerned. If I do Hump Days with Hal or something during the week, it'll be a little more open, and we'll chit chat about other stuff. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Check out my other videos on YouTube if you have any questions about behind the scenes stuff or any of my goal setting stuff. Look at those, give those a run, and I hope they inform and help you. I got to take off. I'm dragging this out, I know, because I miss you guys as I don't see you over the week, but you guys are fantastic, and I will see you next time. Bye. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else.